Hey, race fans, Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip here. You know, it's time to drop the green flag on another edition of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and The Senator, powered by a-puh-LATCH-uh. So, hey, pull those belts tight one more time. Here's my buddy Hermie Sadler and Senator Bill Stanley. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's see what they have to say, boys and girls.
I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
And I'm former NASCAR driver and Fox Sports analyst Hermie Sadler, and I am turning left. This is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, once again powered by a-puh-LATCH-uh. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Hermie. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, buddy. How's things in the western part of the state?
We're doing well. We're having a beautiful day, nice and cool, no humidity. We're very busy here at the mothership, the Stanley Law Group. We're not high atop the Stanley Law Group skyscraper with the new indoor pool. We're over here at the historic Holland Duncan House, built in 1798. Here with my main man, Brad here. Brad Monday, Brad Tuesday, Chad Monday, Chad Tuesday. We are recording here. You are an Emporia, right?
Yes, sir.
And I hear you're having some water problems, like I used to have water problems over there at Faux Show.
We are the hot water heater at Faux Show decided last night to, I have some other words I'd like to use, but let's just say retire itself. So I had to send a man to Kernersville, North Carolina this morning on an emergency trip to pick up a new hot water heater, and it's right kind of in the way of the kitchen where you have to get to it to install it. And as you well know, you can't run a restaurant or wash dishes and sanitize things and all that in a restaurant with no hot water. So we are working on that today. We're taping on Tuesday, so we'll be a little late opening today. We'll go open at 4 o'clock this afternoon, but we are we got to get that going and get it fixed, and we'll open back up to the public at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Other than that, as you know, we are planning for a wedding. Got my oldest daughter, Cora, getting married this week, so we're all excited about
awesome.
That and preparing for that. And you mentioned the weather. I know we've got some of our great farmers across Virginia listen to this podcast because Cora and I went to a supper last week at the old Owen Hunt Club out in Jarrett, Virginia, to eat and to see some folks. They did a fundraiser for a friend of Cora's whose house burnt down, so we did a little fundraiser and did some things for that gentleman. But the other thing I heard from our farmers was they were in dire need of some rain here across south side Virginia. So we did get a couple days off and on showers on Sunday and yesterday that was a welcome sight for our farmers. And so happy we got a little bit of rain the last couple of days. I hope it was enough to help some of my buddies out because they were in a 911 needing some rain in a big time way here in Virginia. So we thank the good Lord for passing some of those rain showers our way because we sure did need them.
Yeah, we did. And we got some good rain here in Franklin County as well. I'm sure you're going to talk about in your turning left moment that it canceled out our Orange County experience with the Smart Tour. We regroup this week and go to Dominion Raceway, where actually the Dominion race is sponsored by the Stanley Law Group. We'll talk about that. But, we've had a pretty busy week. I think there's a lot of things to talk about in our leaning right moments today, a lot of things to talk about in your turning left moments, but always happy to be on with you. Did you see the report out on inflation, by the way?
I did. I'm actually, as I'm sitting here, I'm watching the news. I obviously try to watch, even though it's depressing, try to watch the news, obviously trying to follow the crude oil market, which has just been all over the place. But they just announced about 10 minutes ago, prior to us starting our talk this morning, that inflation for the month of August, 8.3%. So now we wait to see what kind of spin that the Democrats will put on that to make people think that nothing to see here, everything is just fine.
Yeah, they're going to say, well, it could have been an 8.4. So that's negative inflation. Last time the inflation report came out, they said there was no inflation. So this is just economically a spiraling of our free marketplace that is unsustainable if it keeps going in the direction it's going. Don't you agree?
I do. Before we get into our leaning right moments, I want to thank our sponsor, Pace-O-Matic, for everything they do to give us this platform to keep people advised and aware of what's going on in the world of law, politics, racing, everything in between. Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every single time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, and convenience stores thriving in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And thankful to you, Senator Stanley, and your work and your team's work. These skill games are operating legally in the Commonwealth of Virginia for those that do it the right way. And the income, you talk about inflation, this income from these games, this revenue is critical, crucial, vital, whatever adjective you want to use right now. And right now, these businesses are able to operate these games legally. And I know it means a lot to a lot of them because I hear from them every day.
Yeah. And we've got a trial coming up here in November, early November. We're getting ready for it. Looks like Virginia and the Attorney General's office is being pretty active. I guess they're doing what they're doing, and we're going to do what we do, but we're going to have a well-prepared case and fight not only the old law, but their attempt at the new law. It should be pretty interesting. I think we've got a couple things up our sleeve that they won't anticipate, a couple arguments that they won't anticipate. We're not going to go into them now, but we firmly believe that our position is strong, especially when it comes to these skill games, the First Amendment protections, but also the interference of casinos into small businesses. It's just unfair. And so you and I talked about this last podcast on many podcasts, but we just want the small business owner to have an opportunity to compete in this new marketplace. And I don't think that's too much to ask for, do you?
No, and the interesting thing, and then we'll get back to the inflation talk and go back to leaning right, but when you and I started having a conversation about pursuing legal action against SB 971, in the beginning, Senator, obviously I'm not an attorney. I never knew or never considered or never had a conversation about that law being unconstitutional. The heart and soul of my issue was, ethically speaking, how and why would a legislator, or why is the Commonwealth of Virginia embracing out-of-state special interest and their wants and needs over those of small businesses? It was way later in the game that you started to educate me on, okay, Hermie, I know you see this from a what's right and what's wrong perspective, but way past that, here are the constitutional challenges of what the Commonwealth of Virginia is trying to do. And so, it was like my passion came from, why? Forget the legal side of it. Why would anybody, especially those that live in Virginia, raise a family in Virginia, work in Virginia, let alone be a legislator in the Commonwealth of Virginia? Why would you pick casinos over small businesses? Why can't you help us put a pathway together for both to operate and stay in our lane and do our business and employ our people and all that? It's just really sad. And then I said this last week, I don't want to get off on a tangent on it this week, but for all intents and purposes, you have won against SB 971, that it's unconstitutional, among other things. And so what does the casinos lobby everybody to do? Instead of come to the table, sit down, how can we all work together to run our businesses, and more importantly, go after the illegal operators across the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is the true enemy of everybody, including the casinos, instead of sitting down and coming up with putting together workable ideas that we can take to the General Assembly and give people something good to look at and debate. Instead of doing that, they step up to the plate and take another swing at small business by cramming new policy into the state budget. So that's why I tell you, I know you don't get tired of me hearing it, saying it, but I know you as a politician and as an attorney, you've told me through the course of the whole process, trust the system. Trust the system. And I'm trusting the system, but I can tell you I don't trust any of those people in Richmond because they, from day one, have been trying to kill us, and they continue to try to do that at every opportunity. So we're going to fight, but we're going to fight the right way and do the right things, because I don't trust anything anybody over there tells me about what they plan to do or not do in regards to helping us get to the finish line. It's just me and you and our team and a whole heap of small business owners and operators across the Commonwealth of Virginia against Goliath. And I still believe we're on the right side of not only the law, but on the right side of what's right. And so that's what gives me the passion and the fight to continue. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and as David, we've got a pretty good rock in our slingshot. So I'm pretty confident where we're going. We're seeing some moves on the part of the Attorney General's office, Jason Miyares' office. One would think that he supports small business. Of course, some of the lifers in there on the civil side are fighting this. I think even the Attorney General, if he looked at this law, 971, and also the attempted to create a law, an everlasting law in the budget, significantly altering the criminal code, that any good lawyer looks at that and says, that doesn't pass constitutional muster. But the Attorney General's office has to defend the state laws. I think there's a limit to that. I think, if there's an unjust law and they see an unjust law, they can say, hey, wait a minute, this law sucks. Start over, General Assembly. Or they could agree with us, but they're not. And so, we're bringing the same firepower, more witnesses, more facts, more arguments. We will not rest on what happened before. We are going to hammer down through it and do exactly what we need to do. I hear, the little birdie tells me that perhaps you're going to find one day that one of their experts that I believe the casinos handed to them, believe it or not, handed to Virginia, might show up in one of your shops, one of your convenience stores, one of your truck stops, and might observe the skill game being operated, and then may play that skill game for them to later use in testimony. And my response to them was, well, I hope they buy some chips and soda and support the store and support the small business that these games support. So, it's time to put on the helmet and buckle the chin strap and let's get fighting, because we're fighting for Virginia's little small business owner that needs this revenue, especially with 8.3% inflation. And once again, here goes the government. And look, when I told you to trust the system.
Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I know you're at the stoplight and you're getting ready to turn right, but don't forget your sponsor, Senator.
I won't, but I wasn't even there yet.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah, no. What I was saying was, and now I can't even remember half of what I say because it always goes right in my head and outside my head. But it's important to note that, this fight, when I told you to trust the system, I was talking about the judicial system. I trust the judicial system. I've worked in it as an attorney for 28 years. From fighting for the little guy ever since I passed the bar in 1994. I've never stopped. Those are the cases that I love to fight for. In my leaning right moment, we're going to talk about one of those cases, actually, that's very important, not only on the state level, but the national level and the goings on there. But I believe in the judicial system. I believe in a fair judicial system that is unbiased, that looks at everything through a lens of impartiality. And here, I believe not only has this court done that, but I think when you look through a lens of impartiality at this case and the facts of this case, the motivations for these laws even, you'll find that not only they're unconstitutional, they're unfair as they're applied. And I think when I say trust the system, I did not mean to say trust the political system. I'm in the political system as a state senator. I don't trust the political system. I think it is inherently, by its very nature, even said so by the founding fathers, subject to corruption, subject to people using their own devices to get their own way on something that personally benefits them rather than actually doing the Lord's work and doing the people's work as well. And so I didn't tell you to trust the political system, brother. I told you to trust the judicial system. I put all of my faith in there every day when I put on a tie and I go into a courtroom defending one of my clients or representing one of my clients in civil cases or criminal cases for the Stanley Law Group. I'm telling you, trust that system. Don't trust the other, because what we're fighting against is the political system, which I don't trust.
Well, the good news is not every politician in Virginia is on the side of the casinos. You and I taped a Virginia legislator, a couple weeks ago, a segment for this podcast that we'll play at some point in time between now and November that I think is pretty telling and pretty powerful as it brings out, because, people that listen to our podcast are going to listen to me and you talk about the frustrations of having to vote on a budget that, by the way, included skill game ban language, a budget that basically had to be voted on because the budget was already late and teachers needed to be paid, law enforcement needed to be paid, all these things. But this legislator that we taped that we'll play, sometime between now and the next couple of weeks is one that when people look at us, they're going to say, oh yeah, y'all going to say that because y'all are fighting for skill games. Y'all are fighting for small business. Y'all are, y'all are skewed because of this. This guy gets on and says how frustrating it was to have to vote basically yes on a budget that included policy inserted into the budget that went around the legislative process. And he talks openly and honestly about it. And I think when people hear a neutral approach or somebody who's not directly involved in our lawsuit say, this is not the way it's supposed to go. We're not supposed to have to vote for things like this, criminal code change, policy change, blah, 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 without it going through the appropriate legislative process. And that means both sides of the House and the Senate, committees, ask questions, debate, all those things. This language did not go through any of that. And I think as we get closer to trial, we'll probably learn more of the reasons why they didn't want it to go through all that.
Yeah, and just to bring everybody up to speed, we're gaining more listeners every time. So this may be your first podcast. You found us on all the major platforms, and certainly give us a 5-star rating. Tell your friends. You can find us on Facebook at the Leaning Right, Turning Left podcast Facebook page, www.sadlerstanleyracing.com. You can get all of our old episodes there. But just to bring everybody up to speed, in a bumper sticker style version, Hermie and I have been fighting a court case since last year to protect small business when Virginia tried to ban skill games, put in a law called SB Senate Bill 971 that was determined by the court through a preliminary injunction hearing that we fought in a 6-hour trial to be unconstitutional in violation of First Amendment rights and certainly ill-written, and as applied was unfair to our small businesses. We went through the process. The legislature, a few people in the legislature that run the budgets bowed to the casino interest, put in language, changing the criminal code in Virginia, changing the illegal gambling criminal code in such a manner, in such a way that's never been seen before. And they put it in the budget. They didn't offer a bill. They wrote it into the budget where all of us had to vote yes or no on a whole budget, couldn't debate a significant change to Virginia law's criminal code, and did so in a very underhanded way. And so we're fighting now on a permanent injunction for 971, a temporary injunction on this as well, that is unconstitutional. And that's the fight we're talking about, that we're getting ready to fight and have a court hearing, a trial on November 2nd, where I serve as Hermie's attorney. So all of that is so very important to us. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast, but it's so very important, as we also say in what we talk about, to anybody listening, because what we also are saying is get involved, get active. Because when you're not watching, this is what your government does to you. And especially if you own a small business, maybe not one that has a skill game, But quite frankly, if they're going to do it to convenience stores, which they mandated to stay open during the pandemic, and to these truck stops, which they require and need in the supply chain to get goods to marketplace, where these truckers stop and spend a night and want to relax and spend their money in the way that they see fit, well, then they can do it to any business. And that's what we're saying. And that will always be part of what we talk about, is fighting for small businesses, not just in the marketplace of gaming and skill games against the big casinos from out of state, but in every other area that we see that there is a problem that needs to be fixed, that needs to be brought to somebody's attention, and that we need to address it. Part of what we talk about in politics is even Hermie has been called to action so much and been so invigorated by this fight and so willing to fight for small businesses. He's even considering running for a state Senate seat in a newly created district, which he lives in. That's all a part of what our discussion is. But we are getting ready here in the next month and a half to have a colossal fight with the Commonwealth of Virginia, which we believe is harming small businesses. And it's government action against the people, not in the people's interest, that we fight for. I may be a Virginia state senator, but my mother did not name me senator. She named me Bill, after my father. And I will always carry my father and my mother and their words with me everywhere I go. I will not be corrupted by the system. I will call it out anywhere that I see it. And we need people to be active, get active, run for local office, run for state office, get involved in your local committees, whatever it is. It may be just one issue that's important to you. We need to get involved, because if we don't get involved, that machine called government wins, and it starts dictating to your life and telling you what you can and cannot do, restricting your freedoms, because that's the natural course of government that grows. And we need to stop that. And in fact, Herman, we're missing our sidekick today, which is, I got another phone call on my answer machine. I don't know about you, but here it is.
You have an incoming call from
Shep Moss,
an inmate at the Mecklenburg County Correctional Facility. To accept this call, please press 1.
I pressed 2. So Shep can't be here today, but he is also, we've been talking, if you've listened to this podcast before, Shep Moss is a councilman who took up the fight and decided he was going to run to change and represent small business in South Heel, Virginia, a beautiful town in the Commonwealth. And he's been involved, we call him Burn Pile Shep because, he called out and was transparent in some activities that the town was undertaking. And in turn, the town tried to charge him criminally. That's where we get he was in the Mecklenburg jail. And then also subjected him to a FOIA request, which said, give us the information on who ratted us out, those citizens. And Shep Moss resisted. He sent them the pictures he got, but he's not telling them who ratted him out under the whistleblower protections. And Shep's going to he cannot be here today because he's selling a car for Boyd Dodge Ram, a great business in South Hill. He sends his regrets. It's also his birthday. But I think when he comes back on next week, we're going to find that he has an interesting story, that the FOIA request, which we kind of said last week was crickets, he sent in his response, heard nothing. Now he's getting pressure again from a government that doesn't like to be shown up or exposed for what it is. And Hermie, that just tees me up. How about you?
Well, yeah, and I think, I said this last week, Shep's fighting for transparency at the local level. We see issues, and we'll talk about starting about inflation here in a minute and talk about narratives and transparency at the federal level. We got our lawsuit that's trying to expose some of that at the state level. It's just, you got to let people know what's going on. And really, it irritates me more, not just the fact that there are legislators that are choosing casinos over small business, it's the fact that they won't own it. I'm waiting for one legislator, just one, to get up on a stand behind a microphone and say, I'm so-and-so and so-and-so. I'm running for House of Delegates, or I'm running for Senate of Virginia. And guess what? I support out-of-state casinos over Virginia-based small businesses. I want to hear that. A lot of them take the money, but they won't. Just own it. That's all I'm saying. Just get up and be honest with your constituents and say, I chose them over you. But they take all the casino money and buckle under the heat of the casinos. But then when they do a campaign speech or go visit the small businesses, they, oh, look, I'm on your side. I realize the importance of small business. Really? I mean, so that's really my biggest frustration. It's not that people, people have a right to choose to take money from the casinos or not, or defend small business or not. You and I have chosen to defend small businesses on a number of levels. But my frustration is a politician or a lobbyist or whatever taking money and actually doing one thing but saying something else. And that is one of my main issues, and one of the main things that I'm pushing for and will continue to push for is everybody's adults. Make your decisions. Let us know what team you're on, but stand up for it. Own it. Don't mislead and take advantage of people that are, not paying attention as much or don't understand really what the fight is all about. And so that's my frustration. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Shep is new to the game and politics in South Hill, and there's been a group of people there that have done it their way for a long time with no questions asked. And Shep in his position is representing the people. And I don't know how many times you've told me, Senator, I don't care if you're talking about the Senate seat in the newly drawn 17th Senatorial District, or whether it's Governor of Virginia, President of the United States, or City Council in South Hill. Those seats belong to the people of those areas. They decide who they want in those seats. They're not owned or owed or anything to anybody. You have to go earn them from the people. And that's part of this process. It's really, really frustrating how people handle themselves, or just quite frankly don't own decisions they've made or people they've sold themselves to. And we got to change that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, amen, brother, when it's the people's seat, it's the people's government. And, unfortunately, people that sit in those seats fail to remember that. They get in there maybe idealistically thinking that, but as soon as they see how they can push the buttons and move the controls, then it's all about them. I hear it all the time. My seat moved to the west. No, the seat that I sit in, the 20th, has been moved all the way across and renumbered. But the seat that I would run in and hopefully be nominated for and win is now the 7th Senate District. That's their seat. That's their decision. I'd be honored and privileged to represent them at least for 4 years, maybe more. But other than that, quite frankly, it belongs to them, and it's for them to decide. I wish all of our politicians believed that, would just understand that, and would ultimately make that a priority. And I bet you they would be a lot more mindful of the actions that they take, and a lot more honest in the ways that you're exhorting them to be, by saying, just own it. If you're for casinos and not for small business, just tell us. Because that would help the voter decide whether I want you there or I don't want you there. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm for small business. I'm for small business every single time, against big business, against out-of-state business. I don't care if it's gaming, gambling, or anything else. I don't like gambling in Virginia. I don't think it's the panacea that solves Southwest and Southside's economic problems. I think it kind of stunts our growth. I don't think it's going to get us to where we want. I think it opens up a vice that's going to create problems and allows these big out-of-state casinos to come in and take our money, offer us a pittance, and just to roll out and create a new culture in Virginia that I don't think is great. But I don't like unfairness, and that's why we're fighting this fight. And if you're going to open in the gaming industry, that bell has been rung. As I've said before, as my daddy said, you can't unring a bell. That's here. But don't limit it to out-of-state casinos. Allow our small businesses to be a part of it. They deserve it. They earned it. They are the ones at the front lines. And if there is an income stream that they can make just a couple $1,000s a month, it's the difference between closing shop and staying open. It's the offset for this 8.3% inflation in August. And yet the friggin' people that are elected and are sitting in the capital of the Commonwealth of Virginia could give a damn. At least those that are against small business and for these casinos. Not all of them, but enough of them that quite frankly, I don't understand it. I don't get it. And I don't tolerate it. You know, I'm not doing this court case for any other reason than to stand up for the little guy that says, all right, if you're going to allow gambling, let our small businesses be in. So, you know, it's important. And no matter what, we've got to fight, and the fight happens.
You're frozen. Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers, and we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at Exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on Exit 11D off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina. That's Exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers. And Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler's sidekick on this podcast. When I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. We make sure that we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer, and he hates lawyers. So give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. That's www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure we're the lawyers that you swear by and not at. And we're back. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I'm leaning right, and our internet here in Moneta sucks.
What happens when you fall behind on the bills?
It was an electronic problem here we're having at the Holland Duncan house. When you put internet into an old house, you get what you get, and what we got was a whole bunch of nothing. So we had ended our conversation. You'll hear in the podcast that suddenly Hermie says, "You're frozen," and everything just went blank. But luckily it recorded the finishing of my rant. And I want to finish up because it was a really good conversation, if you even remember it, because it's now like an hour later. But, what we're fighting for is very important in the skill game lawsuit. What we fight for, I think, individually as legislators or activists or community activists are important issues that matter to people. We just want people to make it matter for them and to understand why it's so important to be involved.
Yeah, and I just wish it's not against the law to choose casinos over small businesses in the state that you live in. But if you do it, just own it. Just say it. Just, don't try to play both sides and don't try to mislead people. Just own it. Just say, this is what I have chosen. This is the best decision for me for my political career. This was the best decision I could make for whatever the reason may be. but don't behind the scenes work on behalf of casinos that could very easily come to the Commonwealth of Virginia and be a benefit to the Commonwealth. But they are not being a benefit by bullying their way or attempting to bully their way into this Commonwealth of Virginia, into localities like Rosie's coming to Emporia and saying, we're coming into these areas and we want it all. We deserve it all, and we're going to keep stepping up to the plate and taking swings at whoever gets in our way until we get it all. And I just don't think that's the best way to come into a new area. They're not being good neighbors.
No, and it doesn't matter what the industry is. I don't think you should do that no matter what kind of business you run. I mean, the free market system depends on competition.
Can you imagine, we're in the petroleum business. We've talked about it, truck stores, truck stops, convenience stores. What if I came to your hometown up there in Moneta and I said, well, I'm buying the Shell station, there in Franklin County, but before I agree to close on the deal, I've got to make sure that every other gas station in the county is closed, is shut down. I've got to be the only one. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, that's exactly what the casinos are doing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a simple example.
I mean, can you just imagine how people would laugh at me and chew me up and spit me out to say, Hermie, what are you thinking? You think you're supposed to come up here and have a monopoly and get all the business and charge whatever you want for gas, have no competition, no free market, no competition for employees, no competition to keep the prices nothing? I mean, it's just laughable. But this is exactly using power, money, and influence, exactly what the casinos are doing to try to level the competition. I ain't talking about being fair. I'm talking about level them with a stick and get them out of the way. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Eliminate them all and then take control. And then, like I said before, I'll be shocked if they're successful, that as soon as if they were able to eliminate all skill games from convenience stores, truck stops, restaurants, and bars, 6 months later they would say, we need some skill games back in these restaurants, bars, and truck stops and convenience stores. Oh, we happen to have some in our closet. Let's just put them in, and they control it all. This is no laughing matter, and I think everybody should take this seriously and use this as we use it as one example of a larger problem that we're seeing in the Commonwealth of Virginia and in the United States of America. So it's important that we stay vigilant. As Thomas Jefferson said, vigilance is the eternal price of liberty. And so now we're going to go to my Leaning Right moment. My Leaning Right moment is brought to you, as always, by Charlie's Waterfront Cafe and the Tasting Cellar in beautiful downtown Farmville, Virginia, home of Longwood University, home of Hampden-Sydney College, my alma mater, where my roommate, Tom Graziano, and I frolicked around the campus and tried to get grades. Good grades, or at least grades to get out of there. And then Tommy stayed behind, opened up a restaurant. He's owned it ever since. He owns a great restaurant, a great bakery. They have great food, great wine, great drink, great atmosphere. You can eat outside on the patio overlooking the Appomattox River. You can eat inside. You can have large events, large parties. I've done it there. You won't be disappointed when you walk in there. Tell Tom Graziano, tell the people at Charlie's Waterfront Cafe that you heard about them from us. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate Tom Graziano and his sponsorship of this portion of the podcast. Hermie, Leaning Right, actually, it's going to be a more personal Leaning Right, but I thought I would start here with a little bit of Twitter war that's been going on between our favorite senator from Portsmouth, Louise Lucas, and our Attorney General, Jason Miyares. Last week, Louise Lucas put up a tweet that said, quote, Jason Miyares ran for AG as a moderate, but he has turned out to be a mini Trump with somehow even less brains. That's nice. That's friendly. I don't remember him running as a moderate either, but this is what she says. This is a sitting state senator attacking an attorney general. I don't remember anybody on the Republican side attacking the previous Democrat attorney general, Mark Herring, like that. And Jason Miyares, quick to retweet and then respond, said the following to Louise Lucas. Shouldn't you be more concerned by the fact that your pot shop sells THC products that are marketed to kids? Touche.
Wow.
Now, Louise couldn't let it go. Louise tweets in replies to Jason Miyares, "You should know from when you came in here incognito, there is a sign on the door that says no one can enter who's under 21 years old, and we do not sell or market any products to minors. You know better, but would rather lie than make serious policy." Well, that required a response from Jason Miyares. Jason Miyares replied, "I've never been to your shop. Prove it. Or stop lying about me." So this seems to be an ongoing battle. She picks on the governor. She picks on the lieutenant governor. She picks on the attorney general. I don't know if she's writing these or someone else is writing them for her, but she seems to put her foot close to mouth and places inside, and it's a problem. And, you know, even some of the supporters of Louise Lucas are kind of ridiculous too. One of them tweeted a response saying, "Getting kids introduced to weed at a younger age is healthier than forcing Christianity on them." This is who we're dealing with. This is the left lunacy. And so, if for those that may not know, Louise Lucas opened up a CBD/pot shop in her district. There are,
like the day after she got a license, I think. I would assume maybe the first one to get.
Yeah, and not only that, then persons, not Jason Miyares, went in there and bought products that were like edibles that were marketed as Lucky Charms and, you know, like kitty candy. And so when he says that they're marketing to children, you may have a sign on the door that says no one under 21 allowed in here, but what are you carding everybody? And when you're marketing these kind of products, maybe an adult buys them but leaves them out. A kid sees something that says Lucky Charms. Ooh, I love Lucky Charms, and eats them and gets sick or even worse, gets hurt by them. So I think Jason was making a very good point. And especially when it comes to a senator, I just think it's just, Hermie, a little beneath us all if we're elected officials who call people liars and mini Trumps and, you know, and saying that they have less brains than Donald Trump. I mean, it just, you know, I like Louise a lot. I really do, but this is just silly.
I'm a little bit surprised that Jason took the time to even respond to that. Not sure what triggered him or what. Usually, I mean, and I've seen all the stuff on social media. I know you've seen some of it too, especially from Senator Lucas. I mean, she's been hardcore coming after Jason Miyares and Glenn Youngkin. We talk about it all the time. As far as I know, for the most part, Governor Youngkin has just kind of just ignored it, at least on social media. Jason, to this point, has basically ignored it. But this, I did see that he decided to, you know, fire back. But Louise, for about the last year, has been on a really aggressive crusade/campaign to get her Twitter followers way up. I mean, she's done a lot of questionable things and posts she's made, and, you know, trying to be radical, you know, with positions she's taken and people she's attacked and all that in a distinct effort to get her Twitter followers up. You know, more people aware following her account. You know, what does that mean? You know, I know I don't think she's actually officially announced if she's staying in the 18th Senate District or coming over to the 17th. But I think what she does realize is that for the first time in many, 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 many years, she's going to have some competition. She's going to face some competition, you know, getting reelected, whether it be through a primary with Lionel Spruill or whether it be through coming to the 17th and running against whoever the Republican candidate may be here. I think for the first time in years, she is realizing that she's got a fight on her hands. And I think she thinks that the bigger audience she can get on social media, then the more reach she'll have when it comes time to run, she'll be able to reach more people. But you and I have both heard and have been privy to some information or some communication as to, you know, Louise is going to potentially run some polling numbers on the 18th and decide if she wants to, or if she thinks she can compete with Lionel Spruill in a primary or a convention, whatever they decide to have. And if you look at Lionel Spruill's Twitter, Senator, he's got like 3,000 followers. It's not a huge presence on social media as far as numbers
She's got
are concerned.
85,000
So my question,
followers.
she's got 85,000. So if the amount of Twitter followers is what's most important, why would Senator Lucas at all be afraid of taking on Lionel Spruill? So, my point is, I guess she thinks it's cool to have 85,000+ followers on Twitter and to get people to quote unquote like or approve or make, jump on the bandwagon when she's making comments of, to people like Jason Miyares or whatever. But I'm not sure a social media following or how many followers you have on social media is really what's going to make a difference when people go vote. They're going to care more about, okay, Senator Lucas, at least for areas like Emporia, Greensville County that I live in, it's going to be more about what have you done for me politically or legislatively in the last 15 years.
That's exactly right. And, look, let me be frank with our listeners. The Twitter universe is not real. It's not real. It probably has helped the spread of some information, but it probably has been more harm than good overall, especially when it's controlled the groupthink. It's censored things. It's not been a bastion of the First Amendment protections. I mean, they squelched when the Hunter Biden computer came out during the election. We're finding they were squelching any kind of advancements that we're making with the vaccine during Trump's reelection. In fact, Democrats were able to shut down Big Pharma from announcing that they'd had a vaccine fix for COVID because they didn't want Trump getting any of the credit. You've got this media platform working with other media platforms to control what people think, how to, and what to think, not how to think. And while it creates a platform where everybody becomes a keyboard cowboy and they can get out there and say whatever they want to say, it's not real. And what they say is as ineffectual, if we'd allow it to be, as it was on the playground when someone would come up there, some bully would come up to you and say something stupid to you. And the difference being that, like Mike Tyson said, people are saying on Twitter now, what if they had said in the past would have gotten a punch in the face. And so this is not a real place. And so when so many people are affected by Twitter, I've got like 3,000 followers, something like that. Brad, is that about it? 3,000 followers. I tweet about Beagles or Jeff Jarrett or Hermie Sadler. Same thing with Facebook. I mean, if you're going to use it as a weapon, as she just did, and that's probably what got under her skin, calling him a mini Trump with even less brains, which is, in my mind, beneath her. That's nonsense. And it doesn't push the ball down the field. It does not matriculate the ball down the field and do anything meaningful. So to me, Twitter is useless and not real.
The left, about really before President Trump was even sworn into office, the left started this narrative of we're going to unite. We have to unite the country. So I think Senator Lucas and many people in her party are having a hard time coming to grips with the term that the people in the Commonwealth of Virginia chose a new CEO. They chose a new direction, a new path. And if the mission is to unite the country, tell me what about that series of tweets from Senator Lucas aimed at the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia? What is uniting about that?
She may be consuming some of her own product before she tweets. Who knows? But interesting stuff.
Well, I've heard her say her shop is on High Street.
And that's not a joke.
I'm proud of that. It's not a joke.
I just, a senator involved in THC in the very things that we're voting on. I mean, so like even we were talking earlier about skill games. Since I'm your lawyer, I don't own a skill game or a place where skill games, legitimate skill games are played. But as your lawyer, because I believe to be ethical at all times, I don't vote on any legislation having anything to do with gambling whatsoever, gaming involving skill games or anything else. It's the right thing to do.
You're not going to tell me that Senator Lucas voted on the marijuana.
I'm going to tell you she sponsored the bill. Not only did she vote on it, she sponsored that 300+ page monstrosity of ill-gotten gains and stupidity.
I mean, you might as well laugh. We might as well laugh. And oh, by the way, I've got a shop. And the license.
Day
and we're
one.
opening up on July 1, the very day that the law kicks
On
in.
High Street.
Oh, come on
Come
down.
on High Street.
Come on down to High
Yeah,
Street, baby. Come on.
It really is. Look, for them to sit there and just act like they're not putting out product, but it is a known fact that these kind of THC products are most often what children mistake is for candy, and especially when an adult leaves it for a child to access. And a lot of what you see in these cannabis stores, a lot of the packaging emulates candy or things that we remember from our childhood, like Lucky Charms, etc. And that special packaging attracts children.
How many times have we said, there are a number of reasons why she would throw rocks at the Attorney General. But one of them is to deflect attention away from what we just brought to the surface. A fact that a sitting state senator sponsored legislation that would directly impact a business that she owned.
It's just, you're not supposed to do that.
So she's like, don't look at this over here. Look at that no good, divisive, Trump-like Attorney General that we've got. Look over there. Don't look over here.
It'd be the
Look
same
over
as
there.
if I carried legislation for skill games, even though I don't own a convenience store. It's the same thing, even though because I'm representing somebody who does have a legitimate skill game business within their convenience store or truck stop. Same thing.
It's the same reason why, the college loan forgiveness program. They want to bribe people to vote for them, but more importantly than that, or just as importantly, they want to take focus off of inflation. They want to take focus off of prices at the pump, prices at the grocery store, so supply chain issue. Don't pay attention to all that. Look, we're gonna forgive this little note over here on the side for you, $10,000. Ain't we great? It's just really just an unfortunate tactic that many legislators use to take attention away from what they're doing behind the scenes, behind the curtains, whatever the case may be. And I mean, it's not what somebody that's elected to an office to represent the people are supposed to be doing. Here's your favorite word.
Well stated, and it's amazing to me that we even have to talk about this. I'm reminded just a few short years ago, Terry McAuliffe was the governor. Marijuana was nowhere close to being made legal. It was very much illegal in Virginia. And Terry went and saw Willie Nelson somewhere, maybe in Richmond, doing a concert. And Willie Nelson invited him onto Willie Nelson's bus. And they took a picture, and they're standing between, they're standing there kind of with their arms kind of around them. And in front of them was a can of Willie Nelson's superior grade marijuana that he marketed and sold, sitting right there between them. And it was pointed out to the governor, to Terry, Governor, you're there with Willie Nelson, but you're standing in between this can of marijuana, cannabis, that is illegal in Virginia, on a tour bus in Virginia. And, Terry's response was, I had no idea that was marijuana. I did not consume any marijuana, but I must say that the brownies he fed me were freaking awesome, man. I mean, this is silliness, and it's it just reminded me of that funny story. Now that he didn't actually say the brownies were awesome, but we go from, I would never be standing around marijuana to, hey, look at me, come on down and get some free Lucky Charms THC at my pot shop on High Street. How far we have gone.
Unbelievable.
How far we have gone. All right, so that's my first one. My second one involves a court case that I'm involved in, and we've talked about this on the podcast. And for those that may not know, in my other life, I'm an attorney. You probably know because we were talking about it today. and I have the honor and privilege of representing the Smith family, who you may remember. The Smith family's daughter was brutally attacked, sexually assaulted in a bathroom in a high school in Loudoun County, Virginia, attacked by a student, a guy who for that day was identifying, in my opinion, as a woman and was wearing a dress, therefore walked in unabated into a woman's bathroom where he conducted the attack. Now, the police were called. It was reported immediately to the school. School board was notified. And then at a school board meeting, and they were even prosecuting the kid, but kind of slow walking that, a prosecutor, Commonwealth's attorney elected by money from George Soros, a-puh-LATCH-uh, was elected Commonwealth's attorney. She was kind of slow walking that prosecution. But at a Loudoun County School Board meeting a month later, everybody has probably seen these images. The father of the girl, Scott Smith, who I represent also, was at the board meeting just listening, where the school board superintendent said to the school board, there have never been any sexual assaults, and they were arguing the transgender policy. They were trying to pass a inclusive transgender policy. But the question was asked, has there ever been an attack in a bathroom in one of our high schools involving a transgender attacking another person? And he said, never, ever. And Scott walked forward. He heard that and said, that's a lie. That's not true. He was told by the school board not to say anything, to keep it quiet, because they were more occupied with passing this transgender policy than they were about the safety of their students or the concern for the victim, which was his daughter. And he went to stand up and say, wait a minute, that's a lie. And he said, that's a lie. And an activist, a LGBTQ ampersand activist, came up behind him and grabbed him. He spun and turned, started talking, turned, not knowing who it was. The deputies there at the meeting, a lot of deputies, a lot of people there, emotional, turned, grabbed him, put him in a headlock, put him down to the ground, bloody his face, and then charged him with obstruction of justice and disorderly conduct. He became the symbol, the photographic, iconic symbol of parents standing up against these school boards after coming out of the pandemic, who were passing these policies, being gender inclusive at the expense of their kids. We're teaching their kids critical race theory without telling the parents. We're not allowing the parents to be involved in the education or make the decisions about the education of their kids in these public schools. It came all to light. It was ripping the curtain back. We've talked about that in prior podcasts. And Scott Smith became the symbol of that. Well, he had another attorney, and in the general district court, we have two court systems, general district court and circuit court in Virginia. And these misdemeanors are tried first in the general district court. He was convicted. a-puh-LATCH-uh, who is the Commonwealth's attorney in a very large Commonwealth's attorney's office, decided she was going to prosecute this case personally. And while letting out people on domestic charges who then went and killed their spouses, if I remember correctly, and was in a no posted bail, just everybody kind of gets out, that relaxed, defund the police, relax our criminal justice system. She decided she wanted jail time for Scott Smith and asked the court for jail time when he was convicted. The court, of course, looked at his record, clean record, and said no. But most Commonwealth's attorneys, the head elected official, do not try these kind of cases. It was strange that she did. So he appealed it. He hired me. We filed in May of this year a motion to have her recused because she was not demonstrating impartiality. She was actually a member of these groups that were against the parents. She was advocating and fanning the flames of dissent against parents who would stand up to protect their children, such as Scott Smith. So I filed a motion and said, Commonwealth's attorneys are supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to look at the facts of the case, look at the law and apply the law to the facts of the case, and if warranted, then prosecute based on that, but not if not. Well, this had become such a political football. Remember, the Justice Department, through the auspices of people in Loudoun County, including but not limited to a-puh-LATCH-uh, the Commonwealth's attorney, were calling people like Scott Smith domestic terrorists for standing up for the children. And so in this appeal, of course, we went and argued this motion. We had a change of venue motion, which means, we didn't think we could get a fair trial in Loudoun. Well, I thought we could. So I withdrew that motion, but I put forth a motion that said either she's in direct conflict, she has a conflict of interest, or what she's doing right now creates such a problem with the impartiality and the view of the public and the impartiality that it threatens our criminal justice system, and it also threatens Scott Smith's right to a fair trial under the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. And so the judge listened to our oral arguments. He took it under advisement, and he came out with a ruling this past weekend. And so in his ruling, what he basically said was that while he found that there was no direct conflict of interest that would mandate removal of the prosecutor, and I'm reading from the order itself, this court did find, quote, that the position as articulated by counsel for the defendant, that's me, during oral argument is persuasive. The concerns about the public confidence in the integrity of the prosecution, as well as the defendant's concerns regarding the impartiality of the Commonwealth's attorney, are sufficiently grounded, and as a result, the integrity of the defendant's due process rights is in jeopardy and must be protected. He then removed Ms. Buberai from the case and appointed a Commonwealth's attorney in another county to prosecute this case, to take a good look at this case. You know, the cornerstones of justice, Hermie, the cornerstone of a fair system of criminal justice must be void of bias and political agendas. And in this case, and in the hotbed of Loudoun County, which is surprising because Loudoun usually has turned very liberal but used to be conservative, what we're seeing here is that there was no impartiality. There was an extreme bias against Mr. Smith, and it threatened his right to a criminal trial. And as I said in my quote, and I'm going to read it because it really kind of sums up the way I'm handling this case. And I have the privilege of representing the daughter against the school system in a Title IX case. A Title IX is a federal law that prevents discrimination against women. And Joe Biden and his administration is trying to weaken those protections against women by creating this transgender policy that, you know, we've talked about before, that it would allow men who say they're women to compete in women's sports. But I said this, and I said this to the Fox News and everybody else. I mean, all that Scott Smith and his family have ever asked for is that the Loudoun County school system protect their daughter and treat them fairly. It has not. All that Scott Smith ever wanted to do at the school board meeting that night in June was to have its members be honest about what had happened to his daughter and to have them protect all of the students from misguided policies that unfairly put his daughter in danger. They did not. And all that Scott Smith has ever wanted was to be treated fairly under the law by Loudoun County's Commonwealth's attorney in dealing with the unjust charges placed against him. And she, Buddha Buberai, has not. Instead, Ms. Buberai has chosen politics over truth, impartiality, and justice. And so we were very grateful, Hermie, for the court's decision. You know, this family has been through a lot, and it has been a bellwether and a clarion call for change. And I am hopeful, especially when we talk about other things, that we have lit a fire under parents all across the nation by seeing this and seeing, when they reflect and look upon their own school boards and they look in their own public school systems, that this is exactly what's going on, and it needs to stop. Because the school system works for the parents, not the other way around. Because the parents are the ones that have the primacy of raising these children, not the schools. They don't know how to raise my kids. And I'll be damned if my wife and I are going to let them. And so what we're seeing here now is a measure, in some small measure, of the court actually resetting to make sure and ensure that Mr. Smith gets a fair and impartial trial. That's where, like I said before, Hermie, trust the system. Because here the system is working. It's creating a fair playing field, a level playing field, and letting the facts fall where they are. And if they fall where they are within the analysis of the law that's applied, that we will find that Mr. Scott Smith is not guilty of the charges. He was charged with obstruction of justice and disorderly conduct. The court, upon motion at that May hearing, when we also made this motion to recuse the prosecutor, dismissed the obstruction of justice charge. So we only have the remaining charge of disorderly conduct, and that is conduct's intentional, specific conduct, the law says, so as to create a harm, a threat of violence, to incite violence, basically disorderly conduct is. And what Mr. Scott Smith did was stand up and say, you're not going to lie about my daughter, and you're not going to lie about what happened, to pass a misguided policy that may hurt another person's daughter in the future. Good for him. God bless him for doing it. And I look forward to having that court case, which is probably going to be scheduled now in the next few months. But that's another part of the fights that you got to stand up for. And so it was a big piece of news today that Buddha Biberi was, and I'm still trying to get that name right, was recused. George Soros-backed prosecutor recused because she couldn't do her job. She's too biased. And that's not the first case that she's been removed from, Hermie. She was removed from another criminal case unrelated to ours, a burglary case, because she had misrepresented facts to the judge, to the court. So, and it probably won't be the last, but we look forward to a fair and impartial trial, and we're grateful for the court's ruling.
Well, congratulations to you. I know that's another case, although different in so many ways. The one thing that's consistent with our case against the government overreach into small business, one thing that parallels your fight in that case is you believe in it strongly, you're passionate about it, and of all the things that are different, one thing that's the same, we're all we're looking for is a level playing field, whether it be in business or whether it be going to, can you imagine just if it was your daughter? I mean, just think for 1 second, Bill, as passionate as you are about it now, and your counsel, to this family and to this dad and to this girl, just think if it was your daughter.
It's hard to.
Just think if it, I can only imagine, as bad as it would be anyway, trying to go defend the rights of your daughter and my rights as a parent and all that. And then you've got someone in a position of elected power, Commonwealth's attorney of an area, that's trying to stack the deck, manipulate the system to get a ruling or to get a, to change the narrative. How many times do we say it on this podcast? And I'm appreciative that you're involved and pushing to get the truth out, get the facts out, get a fair and impartial hearing, ruling, and hope by the grace of God that the things that y'all are doing in that case now maybe will prevent, if it's just one, prevent another situation from like that from happening.
Yeah, and I appreciate your kind words.
Anywhere, much less
I appreciate
in the
that. And that's why we fight. And, I didn't take this case because it's, a big money case. This screamed injustice to me. They approached me. It didn't take long for me to say absolutely. I think it's an important fight for this family that has been through so much, that started in that one day in May at a high school in Loudoun County because of misguided policies in part and someone with ill intent. And now what it's done, it's changed that Scott Smith's daughter's life forever. It's changed that family forever. I'm on the phone with Scott and his wife, Jessica. They're great people, and it's an emotional issue for them. And why, you hit the nail on the head.
Sure
it would be so for me or any parent. But for the grace of God go I. But you're also right in the sense that if we don't stop this, if we don't take back the power as parents, the primacy that we have over our children and their education, then there's going to be another Scott Smith's daughter and another Scott Smith. And, this public school system that we've created has run roughshod over the parent, thinks that it's in the prime position to dictate what your kids are taught. And as I said, even in a prior podcast, what to think, not how to think. It used to be they taught us how to think, not what to think. And on top of that, how dare you? I mean, think about it this way. When Scott stood up for his daughter, he has been excoriated in the press, domestic terrorist. The left has attacked him mercilessly, has attacked their families. I mean, when he said, wait a minute, that's a lie, that's not true, an activist grabbed him and that started the whole melee. I mean, the left just wants the curtain to be closed so we never see what's behind in the truth. And when you dare pull it back like Scott Smith did, then you become the target. You're a domestic terrorist. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. You're transphobic. They throw these words at you that are, just as on Twitter, meaningless, useless. And yet, in the end, they're the ones that are left to pick up the pieces. A court case can bring justice, but it can't put you back to where you were the day before this all happened. I've said to myself, Judge, tell me which door in this courthouse I can go to and knock on and get my client's life back and his reputation back and all that he's lost and all that his family's lost. Because they'll never be the same again. You know, an acquittal is what we fight for. We got one to go. And I'm going to fight hard. You know that, Hermie. I fight hard. But then what do we do? You know, when we're fighting a Title IX lawsuit, well, monetary damages are the only damages the court can award. What is that going to do? Does that put her in a good place mentally? No. It doesn't solve the problem that was created by a misguided policy saying transgender shall be given more rights than any kids that are not transgender, and you just need to let them walk into a women's bathroom when they're wearing a dress because they feel like being a girl that day. How is that right? And yet these institutions don't mind steamrolling people like the Smith family, rolling right over top of them, so because their agenda is more important than the life of that little girl. I won't stand for that. That's the injustice we fight. And if we don't fight for it, then who is? If not now, then when? And so I think what I'm seeing, and seriously, Hermie, I think woke is going broke. I think all of this stuff has created, it's had its high water mark, and I think it's going down. And I think people are waking up and seeing how it's pervasive in their lives. I mean, we're attacking even comedians. You can't say that joke anymore. It used to be comedians were the ones that could
look at the NFL.
I mean, yeah.
The NFL was out front and center. You know, look at us. We're going to champion all of these issues. And people eventually turned their back. And the NFL quickly and finally said, whoa, we better get back off that horse and play football and not try to tell people what they're supposed to think about certain social issues or whatever the case may be, because the whole story never gets told. The half of the story they want to try to influence people with gets told. But people started quickly a couple years ago letting the NFL and the NBA, as far as that goes, let them know right quick that we watch these events, sporting events, to get away for enjoyment, for the competition, not to be told what we're supposed to think on something.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Black Lives Matter on the field. Have you this year? Although I watched the Commodes actually win a game against one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
The Washington Commodes, so named by our former governor, George Allen. But I didn't see all those.
right here on the podcast.
Right. I didn't see any of those statements like I did before. They seem to be pulling back. I'm even seeing some colleges where a radical left professor tweets out something vicious about the Queen's death, and the college says, whoa, we do not condone her statement. Wow, they're actually standing up for free speech again. Maybe what we're seeing is that tide that came in with that big rush is now receding in a low tide situation because the American public's just not putting up with it. And you're seeing
the sad thing about all that, Bill, is during that whole period, so many people were struggling, hurting, so many bad things were going on in our country. And instead of pulling together and figuring out how to make this place a better place to live, the left looked at it as an opportunity to bring more people under the tent for them. And it's really, really sad. I mean, it's worse than sad. It's despicable.
Well, and really going after the fundamental underpinnings of not just a free society, but a fabric of a moral society. And morals should not be a bad word. Virtue, morals, and integrities, characters, those things mattered in America. That's what built America. It's not a bad thing. And so they go right into the media, and they go into the educational system, and what they're trying to do is create this division between child and parent. But a good society depends on a good parent and good child relationship, and that the parent provides not just the essentials of clothes and food, but also of learning and living and morals and integrity and character and virtues. And, they call it virtue signaling. If you're Christian, you're virtue signaling. Well, if you don't want to believe in Jesus Christ, who is my Savior, then go do it. Fine. Just don't put it on my children. Don't make it a part of me. And And then don't sit there and judge me just because I think differently than you do. Just that's a part of America. America is not everybody ever thought the same way. We've always had differences, but we respected that you could have these differences and still have common goals. You know, it reminds me, we just, are remembering 9/11, 21 years ago. And I was thinking to myself as I posted that we shall never forget this and we should always remember this. And my children weren't born. And Brad was just a youngster. Brad was 1 year old. But you know what mattered most to me as the tragedy and horrific nature of 9/11 was remember how we were on 9/12 as a community, as a world, as a national community, flags on our cars, waving at each other, honking at each other, helping each other, hugging each other.
Proud to
no
be
matter
American.
what you were. Proud to be an American because we lived in the greatest country on this good earth. And that in 21 years has gone away. And now we're as divisive as ever. And the thing is that those that wish to ruin and take away the underpinnings, the virtue, the character, the families, the parents being the primacy of the children, they're the ones that have done it, but yet blame us for it. And we're the radicals, we're the insurgents, we're the insurrectionists, And I don't know, Hermie. I don't know how we get back to 9/12.
People are slowly but surely, maybe one at a time, 5 at a time, 10 at a time, are starting to see it, feel it, hear it, and they're not standing for it. So we just got to continue to be aware, alert, get involved, go vote, understand the issues, look at your candidates, and we gotta fight this battle one day, one step.
Totally
at a time.
agree. Totally
That's what
agree.
we
But
gotta
we
do.
have to. I would love for this nation to get back to September 12th, even with the tragedy of 9/11 and the way we thought about each other. Because what a more wonderful place this would be. And hopefully, as we turn away, and the high water mark has already occurred on this woke, and now woke is going broke, that we get back to what matters in life, because we only have one life and one life to live it, and we need to leave this great United States in a better position than when we found it and we were growing up. That is my Leaning Right moment, sponsored by Charlie's Waterfront Cafe and my good friend Tom Graziano. Thank you for a spirited discussion. I always love those moments, man. We get passionate, well, carried away, but not carried away, passionate, right? Right, Brad?
If you care, you're passionate. You got to.
The moment I'm not passionate about something, then I'm done. That's it. Whether it be politics or the law, if the passion goes out, somebody else can come in, because that's the good time for someone else to take over. But I hope they have the same passion that I did.
Oh, now you've taken up all my time, so
No,
I've
you
got
have
very
plenty
little
of time
for my turning left moment.
because we had a short interview that we're doing.
But hey, before we get to the turning left moments, what can people look forward to as far as our, sometimes we have a guest, sometimes we don't. This week you've got something a little bit different, a little bit special. Tell people after my turning left moment, those that are listening and waiting for the guest portion of this podcast.
So we've got a really good guest, Billy Riddle, Franklin County native, veteran, war hero, one of our favorite people. Actually, the first time you and I, Hermie, were ever on a podcast ever was at the Motor Mile last year when you run. We were invited to come on there. We went on there. So then we brought Billy Riddle. Since it's a sister podcast, we're bringing on Billy Riddle and the Appalachian Podcast to join us at North Wilkesboro in your motor coach. So this is a recording that we made a couple of weeks ago, but we thought it was a very compelling podcast, so we're going to talk with them. It's already been on. We did a simulcast, so it's already been on the Appalachian Podcast, but we encourage people not only to listen to our podcast, but listen to that one. It's really great. It's all about Appalachia. If you want to know about Appalachia, then that's the place to be. So Billy Riddle and the Appalachian Podcast is coming up in our interview portion. Now we are turning left.
Turning Left is sponsored by Laura Stanley and Vista Installations. Laura likes to remind our listeners that she has operated a successful window and door installation company, and she has babysat a politician and a trial attorney, somewhat flamboyant one, for over 12 years. She's got a lot on her plate.
Don't you know it?
We appreciate her being a sponsor of the Turning Left moment. So a couple things, Senator, before we get to the Appalachian podcast here. There was just an announcement that came across the wire. It was on TV. It was on NASCAR.com and everywhere in between. Kyle Busch has officially signed to drive for Richard Childress Racing starting in 2023.
Really?
Your thoughts?
Wow, that's news. Well, by the time this thing lands, it'll be there 2 days old. This is Tuesday. So he's going with Childress.
Richard Childress Racing, and he will be driving the number 8 car that is currently driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick, they did announce, Childress did say, Tyler Reddick is going to 2311 Racing, but that's in 2024. So Richard Childress still has Tyler Reddick under contract, not only the rest of this year, but next year. But Richard Childress did announce at the press conference that he would have a third charter in 2023 and provide a ride in 2023 for Tyler Reddick as well. But certainly Kyle Busch is going to move into that 18 and take Tyler Reddick's seat. Tyler Reddick, it remains to be seen whether that third car is operated actually at Richard Childress Racing, or does Richard go out, since he's mad at Tyler Reddick, maybe to a not as well-equipped team and say, hey, for X amount of dollars, run Tyler Reddick for this year. We don't really care where he finishes, just running because I'm contractually obligated to do so.
Don't cross the man.
We'll have to wait and see how that plays
Don't
out.
cross.
Yeah. But you know what? One of the things we talked about a couple months ago when we were talking about Kyle Busch and where he might land, and I remember us talking specifically about Tyler Reddick on this podcast when Tyler Reddick announced that he was leaving to go drive for Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. Our conversation went around to, why wouldn't Richard Childress lock Tyler Reddick down now under contract for the next couple of years? And I made the comment, well, Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan were willing to commit to the resources and the finances and the money to put Tyler Reddick or keep Tyler Reddick or want Tyler Reddick to be a part of the team at 2311, despite the fact that they didn't have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed from a sponsor perspective, or what team, if they had a car available or a charter available. They just said, we want Tyler Reddick. We'll worry about the details later. And I was of the opinion that maybe Richard Childress had dropped the ball or let Tyler Reddick get away because he was more interested in, we don't have a sponsor in place. We don't have really a team in place. We've got too many unanswered questions to commit to Tyler Reddick. But as we find ourselves today, Tyler Reddick is on his way out. Kyle Busch is on his way in. And now Richard Childress has got to pony up some cash on behalf of Tyler Reddick because he's got to buy, rent, lease, do something on a charter for this third car to run Tyler Reddick in 2023, which if he had been not so frugal when he was negotiating with Tyler Reddick, he probably could have went ahead and locked him down short term. But it's going to be interesting to see over the next several months, and especially into the off season, heading into the Daytona 500, what Richard does with Tyler Reddick. Will they run a third team in-house for RCR and for the 1 year lame duck season before he goes to drive for Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, or will he farm him out to another team that has a charter? And as far as Kyle Busch, right now, they say he's going to drive the number 8. But wouldn't it be awesome if they could figure out a way to put Kyle Busch in number 3?
Yeah.
That's
absolutely
where he belongs. Yeah. Let's be honest. He's much more of a Dale Earnhardt behind the wheel. I would never in a million years say that he's another Dale Earnhardt because there are no other Dale Earnhardts. And away from the track, out of the track, there's no other Dale Earnhardt. But when you're comparing driving styles and driving styles alone, nothing else, the closest driver on the track right now to driving the way that Dale Earnhardt used to drive. There's nobody like him, but the closest one, in my view, would be Kyle Busch.
So many questions. I mean, so many questions come out of this. Number one, do you think he lets the number 8 driver go right now? Do you think he sends him off? He says he'll get a...
No, he's already said he's already committed by contract to provide a car for Tyler Reddick to compete in next year. My question is it going to be actually a third team under the same roof as the other two at RCR, or is he going to go to another lesser team that has a charter and says, hey, for X amount of dollars, I'll
like
pay
Rick
you to
Ware,
run Tyler
Rick Ware
Reddick next year
Racing,
because we've got
Rick
something
Ware's
like
got
that.
2.
Yeah.
Then there's
Who knows?
BJ McLeod.
Who
There's
knows?
the guys that run in the back, but still, still those are the grassroots guys. I guess he could rent. So you could rent a charter, put his guy in a car back there. He could do that.
If you want him to really make him suffer, put him in a car with only got 3 tires on it.
So my other question is, but Kyle Busch is like Mr. Toyota. He's won like 60 races in a Toyota. He's got the Toyota development program in the truck series. Isn't Richard Childress a Chevy? He's a Chevy. He's not a Toyota.
Yeah, so that's a bunch of moving parts. I'm curious. I mean, obviously, Kyle Busch will be driving a Chevrolet, which is a big get for Chevrolet to get arguably Toyota's most popular driver out of the Toyota brand into a Chevrolet. I would expect you would see ultimately Kyle Busch Motorsports transition over to Chevrolet. I don't see how they do it any other way, but I don't think there's been an announcement made on that just yet. But I can see no way for Kyle Busch to drive a Chevrolet in the Cup Series and all of a sudden become one of Chevrolet's poster boys and still have a relationship with Toyota at the Truck Series level. I can only imagine that if KBM continues to exist, and I hope it does, that's a tremendous asset to the Truck Series in its own right. I think you'll see sooner rather than later, you'll see KBM transition to Chevrolet.
Because, Toyota was saying Kyle Busch leaving Toyota just can't happen. He's got too big an investment. He's too big of a star there. So I always thought, okay, well, if he can't run for JGR, then the only other Toyota really team out there was 2311, wasn't it? I thought maybe he slips into his brother's car for a year or two or see what happens there. But that's not happening. He's transitioning over to Chevrolet.
You know what this is in a lot of ways? Toyota, when they took Tyler Reddick from Richard Childress and Chevrolet, they said, gotcha. Now Richard Childress has taken one of the most accomplished racers ever and a huge piece of Toyota racing, not only in his own right as a driver, but as an owner in the Truck Series. He comes to Chevrolet, so now Richard Childress and Chevy look at Toyota and say, gotcha. So don't think for a minute that this is not in some ways one-upmanship. You got us by getting Reddick. We got you by getting Kyle Busch. So now, and I do know that Chevrolet has to be involved. Don't know to the degree. But Richard Childress has already proven that he's at his age, and I understand it, he's careful about what he spends and on who, money-wise. So they probably had to empty the bank to get Kyle Busch and do all these other things. So I don't know if we'll ever know to the extent, but I'd be willing to bet that Chevrolet is heavily involved on the backside of all this, pulling the financial strings.
What a big get for Chevy. And, Chevy's done very well this year in the Cup Series. You had some last year, you've had, and over the past years, you've had some Toyota dominance because of Kyle Busch. Now, my question, also, because I was wondering if Hendrick would bring him back, because, he drove for Hendrick and they didn't kind of get along and he left Hendrick. Didn't Richard Childress and Kyle Busch get in an altercation at a truck race where he thought Kyle Busch had done one of his drivers wrong and they got into a physical altercation? I think that Richard Childress got fined like $150,000, $200,000 for some fight they got in. Were you there? Were you pit reporting at the time? Do you remember something like that?
Yeah, I was standing 10 feet from it. Yeah, well, it was a situation where Kyle Busch was driving in a truck race, got into one of the RCR drivers on the track. I really can't remember which one, maybe Joey Coulter or somebody. I'm not even sure. But Kyle Busch wrecked Richard Childress's truck in a truck race. And they came around, and when the race was over, Richard came over. The funniest part about it was Richard, he probably had a $40,000 or $50,000 Rolex watch on. He actually took the time and took his watch off and gave it to one of his handlers and said, hold my watch. Business. And went over there and actually put Kyle Busch in a headlock and started wailing on him. And I did see today, while we were taping, I was watching some of the feed. Richard gave Kyle Busch some kind of a watch today as a gift, like hold this watch. Now you get to actually hold a watch. So they've injected some humor in that.
All right, now my final question, because I have a lot of questions, and a lot of times you don't answer them.
I got a lot of questions about you too, about this delay on the podcast and internet. So I want to know right now, what are we doing? How are we going to fix it? I mean, do you care? I mean, are you involved in it? I mean, we going to just, what are we doing?
You sound like me.
What are we doing?
Me. You sound like you're using my tactics.
Leaving the racetrack.
I use against you. Yeah. So what do you think the chances are? I mean, the number 3, one, Austin Dillon, Childress's grandson's running it now. He'd have to give it up. I don't think he's wedded to it because he hadn't done anything great with it. I mean, he won a race. I mean, that's good. And I like him, and I like his reality show. But what are the chances that, number one, Kyle Busch, you think, drives the number 3, and number 2, that the fans accept that one of the most liked and also the most hated, which I guess is kind of like Dale Sr., would be accepted into driving the number 3, and they turn it back into a black car, kind of like in the Good Ranch scheme?
I think there is very little to zero chance that it'll ever actually happen that they put Kyle Busch in the 3. That's the answer to the first question. But the answer to your second question is, how would the fans accept it? I think the fans will accept it a hell of a lot better than they accepted putting Austin Dillon in the 3. Because it may take a while, and they may say in the beginning that they wouldn't, but deep down inside, if you are a diehard, true-blooded Dale Earnhardt fan, the closest thing that you will ever get to having Dale Earnhardt back on the track is having Kyle Busch driving a black number 3.
Well, you know what? NASCAR has done itself a great thing.
So it just boils down to ultimately, will Richard Childress, will the pressure get to him? Will there be enough push from the media, from the fans, which I think would be the most important thing? Think about the merch.
Yeah.
Think about the merch.
Goodness.
Kyle Busch in the 8. Yeah. Kyle Busch in the 3.
Yeah.
Cha-ching.
You're not kidding.
So,
wow.
I don't know when or if that will be any consideration. But, and sometimes, like in wrestling, you have to make them wait. You have to make the fans wait for a little while. Don't give them the payoff right off the bat. Maybe it's something they build up to over time. But in all seriousness, I doubt very seriously that it would happen. But you talking about giving the fans something to latch on to. If you're Richard Childress and you really and truly want to blow the doors off, I mean, can you imagine? And this could happen now. Right now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a lock on most popular driver in the series for 20 plus years. Since he retired, Chase Elliott has had a lock on it and will have a lock on it until, if they put Kyle Busch driving the number 3 for Richard Childress Racing, I'd be willing to bet that Kyle Busch would win most popular driver that
Richard Childress, if you're listening,
period.
Call Hermie Sadler. He's got a plan for you. I mean, that would be awesome. And the intrigue now, the intrigue is so
great. If you're interested in, look, the script on Kyle Busch would flip immediately.
Look, you're right.
Right now, he's the black hat. it would flip immediately, the narrative on Kyle Busch. He would be the fans' darling.
I mean, just like when Kurt Busch was the most hated, and now he's the elder statesman. Harvick wasn't liked sometimes, and now they're all liked. Stewart was hated early on, and then in his latter years, he was liked. So, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a natural progression. And if you want to bring a sponsor to that race team, a multi-million-dollar same-level sponsor, say, as Mars M&M's, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. I hope it happens. That would be awesome. So what else you got, big boy?
We want to talk about the Smart Tour getting back to action this weekend at Dominion Raceway here in Virginia. But before we get to that, we need to mention and get your thoughts on Bubba Wallace. Won at Kansas over the weekend.
Yeah, great win.
Obviously, he's a lightning rod in the series for reasons that I still to this day do not understand. You know, the last race he won at Talladega. It was rain shortened. It was this, it was that, it was the other. But Sunday at Kansas, he drove with no rain, no problems, no cautions, no this, no that. He drove to victory lane in the 45. So the 45 won twice at Kansas. They won with Kurt Busch earlier this year, come back and win with Bubba Wallace. But if you look at things from an objective point of view, huge win for Bubba Wallace, big day for the sport of NASCAR.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. And Bubba's in the 45 because they're trying to get an owner's championship for 2311, even though Kurt's not running in it. I hate that Kurt Busch isn't finishing out what was a very good year for him, and he's been an excellent teammate for Bubba Wallace. It's nice to see Ty Gibbs driving, and now he's in the 23 car so that they can run for that owner's championship. But he ran a great race. I mean, from about sixth position on, when he was right up in there, top five, he just moved through the field and then played a very good game of finishing out the laps and winning. So it was good to see that. I know the Wendell Scott family was really happy. Of course, he drove a replica car of Wendell Scott's early on in his career. I think it was in trucks, and certainly so they're very thrilled about that. I think it's great for the sport. Noah Gragson wins a rain-shortened Kansas. I think he's great for the sport. He's going to be popping in the 43 car, I guess, next year in Petty. And I thought I'm not usually impressed with Kansas as a raceway, but I liked the race this time. I liked the Cup race. I thought it was a very good race, and it was good to see Bubba Wallace win. And I think it's always good for the sport. And it remains to be seen how he grows with 2311, especially having a new partner with him. But I think it's going to be one of those things that's going to be mutually beneficial for both 2311 and for Bubba Wallace. So good for him. You know the first track he ever won on, Herm? He ever won a race on when he started his racing career? You know where that was? Franklin County. Franklin County Speedway, where we won our first race.
Oh,
so there you go. And for the Smart Series and the Sadler Stanley Racing team. So congratulations, Bubba Wallace. Maybe we can get him on sometime. Be great to talk to. Hey, by the way, have you ever watched, because after the race, because it was kind of shortened, they have this Race for the Championship. Have you seen this docuseries that they're doing for NASCAR? It's really good. It's really good. You ought to tune in. Race for the Championship. I've got it DVR'd. And the first two were great. So I guess it's an ongoing series. I want to see more of it.
So the Smart Tour gets back in full swing this weekend. Of course, we got rained out at Orange County last weekend. I want to make sure our listeners and viewers, because they were a big part of that. The Jonathan Cash, making his debut in the SS racing car, and we were doing a purse match, and some other people got involved to raise money for the family of Chris Beasley, who we tragically lost a couple of weeks ago. Great dad, father, friend to many in the karting industry, promoter over at Capital City Speedway. We're going to roll Jonathan over into, he'll run the second car at Motor Mile October the 1st. So we want to let people know that we will still be doing all the things we said we will be doing for the Beasley family, but we're going to do all that in and around the race at Motor Mile October 1st. But the Smart Series is back in action this weekend in Virginia at the Dominion Speedway. What a beautiful facility that is. owned by a great friend of mine named Steve Britt. I've been there many times. But that track is fast. It will by far be the fastest track the modifieds run on the Smart Series. That track is, fast. Long straightaways, high banked corners. Those cars are going to fly around that racetrack. And I know, Senator Stanley, you plan to be on the scene this weekend entertaining some guests of ours at the Speedway this weekend. Are you not?
Yes, I will be. And in fact, the Stanley Law Group, my law firm, is sponsoring the race. It's the Old Dominion 99, but sponsored by the Stanley Law Group. And that's a beautiful track. And we've got a nice suite up there overlooking the track. And we're having some of my friends who are elected officials going to be there. We got other friends. We've got people who are operators and owners of convenience stores and those that may have skill games in there. And so we're going to meet with them and show them a good time and hopefully have a really good race as we march to the championship of the Smart Series. We're in third place, which is not bad for built this team from the ground up, starting in January. So it's going to be a great race. It's going to be a good time. I think the weather's going to be great and wonderful for us. So, if you guys are out there, come see us and we'd love to talk to you. And I know, Hermie, you can't be there because you've got that very special weekend coming up. Sorry, I planned this thing before I knew the wedding date. So my bad, but don't worry, I'm paying for all of your grandkids' college. So,
great.
Just to make up for it.
You're off the hook then.
Oh, wait. Is that is that recorded? All right.
You're off the hook. You're off the hook once we see the check.
Oh, there's a contingency. Yeah. So we're gonna have a great time, and hopefully we'll post a P1. We'll come to Victory Lane for you, Hermie, and be that much closer. And then after that, we've just got a couple more races in the Smart Series. You've got Hickory, you've got Motor Mile, you've got Tri-Cities. Am I missing any, Brad? I think that's it. 4 or 5. Yeah. So, we're running out of races to get that championship together, but we've had a good year and a good driver and a good Phil Stefanelli and his crew have done a wonderful job over there at PSR. So we're looking to do great things in our first year. So I'm really happy to be your partner in that. It's going a lot more smoothly than this podcast is.
I can't wait to I'll see you next week. We'll be together. And by the way, on next week's show, guess who I guess?
Yeah.
Who I guess is going to be?
Who?
A proud member of the first family of stock car racing.
Whoa.
Kyle Petty.
You going to tell us? Say that again.
Kyle Petty.
Kyle Petty is going to be on this podcast
next week.
And
And I can't wait to not only have him on the show, but wait for you to invite him to drive the modified somewhere.
I was just about to say, he'd be perfect for one of our races.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
He'd love the modified.
I haven't asked him,
we could,
so he may very well say yes.
We could even paint it petty blue in his honor.
Couldn't we?
Why not?
Why not?
We could. We should. Now, let me tell you, and before we have him on next week, and I know you got a signed book, I've just finished Swerve or Die, which is his autobiography, and written in his style and his voice. It is one of the most amazing reads, sport autobiography book I've ever read. And I'm not just saying that because you now said he's coming on. I read it mostly over vacation. It's a good, quick read. It's really poignant. It's got some really, really great moments in history that he tells us about, but also his insights. And I'm telling you, it'll move you. And the last part of the book is very moving. Talks about his son Adam, the tragedy that befell that family, and it's a great book, and I recommend it. So, Herm, if you haven't read it, jeez, my grammar is horrible here at the end. If you haven't read it, Hermie, I think you should read it before we get on with him, because it's a wonderful book.
Well,
and it's got simple words that you can understand.
Yeah, we're
he's not even paying attention. He's doing other things right now. You should see. See, we're on video right now, so we can see each other. You can't see, but he's checking those crude oil prices right now like
I'm actually dispatching my truck to someone in the logwoods.
Well, there you go. He'll hear what I said when we play it back to him next week.
Yeah, but I'm
gentlemen,
excited to get Kyle on. And look, Kyle's one of my favorite people. We obviously I raced with him for years. Did TV with him about 15 years. Nobody I respect more than Kyle Petty. And talk about a guy that's been there and seen it all, done it all, experienced it all, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and everything in between. He's just a unique guy. There's just not many Kyle Pettys in the world. And I'm glad that my relationship with him is bringing him to this podcast so you can get to know him.
Yes. Once again, I just hitched my wagon to your star, baby. But that's going to be a great interview. Hopefully, and I promise you this, Herm. I will make sure that Chad Monday is here, not Brad Tuesday. And that Chad Monday makes sure that all the electronics, actually, we're all going to be together in Richmond. You're going to be in Richmond, Chad. You know that yet? Okay, you are. And we'll all put it together, and it will be a wonderful podcast, and it will not be a half hour long. How's that, Chad? Like we did.
Yeah, this
when
is.
It came to.
Excuse me for saying
Michael
it this
Walter.
way, but this is Kyle effing Petty. We can't screw this up.
You've got your marching orders, Brad. All right. That's a great turning left moment, man. That was awesome.
So anyway, it's been fun. I also want to thank our friends at Pace-O-Matic. Again, Pace-O-Matic is an entertainment company which develops gaming software that players love to play and can use their skills to win every single time. Plus, these games of skill provide vital revenue to keep family-owned businesses like bars, restaurants, and convenience stores thriving. I know we probably don't say it enough, but thanks to the people at Pace-O-Matic for seeing the vision that we have and helping to provide this platform for us to keep our message out front. We get to talk. We get to have a ball and talk about a lot of things that are important to us on this platform, and it's helping us get the truth out there to a lot of people that are following what we're doing. And maybe to not everybody, but to us, the truth matters.
And look, when you play a skill game made by Pace-O-Matic, you can win every time. Every time.
Hence, skill. It's not chance.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. We bring this to you, of course, because we think it's important, but we love our listeners. We have an incredible growing audience of listeners. You can catch us on all the major platforms. Tell your friends, tell your family. Go to our Facebook page. That is the Leaning Right and Turning Left podcast Facebook page. You can also catch us on our SS Racing Facebook page and also on our website, www.sadlerstanleyracing.com. Thank you, Hermie, for another wonderful, wonderful time.
It's fun, brother. We'll see you next week when we bring Kyle Petty on. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Up next is Billy Riddle and the Appalachian Podcast. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left. We appreciate every single one of you, and we'll see you again next week.
God bless you.
Hey, real quick, want to give a shout out to James up in Stoneville, North Carolina. He's a friend of the show. Hell, he's a friend of the family now. We were able to go ahead and help his family recently save more than $1,200 a month. Really think about this. My man Robbie didn't save $1,200 one time. He's going to save it each and every month, all because he went to savewithconrad.com. He left us a 5-star review earlier this week, and he said this: from the first phone call with Christian, all the hard work Diane put in, Jennifer taking time to explain things and help me understand where we were at with the deal, right up to Steve helping me get this survey through, nothing but professionalism all around. Dealing with First Family has helped us to the point we've cut $1,200 a month off our bills. I can't say enough about the team Conrad has assembled. I highly recommend First Family to anyone looking to purchase or refinance their home. Thanks to Conrad and the entire First Family team. No, thank you, James, for the great review, and congratulations on saving $1,200 a month. And oh, by the way, you can skip your next 2 house payments. It's real, folks. SaveWithConrad.com can help you. We're licensed in more than 40 states, but if you've got credit card debt, if you're looking to save money on your monthly payments, if you're looking to pay your house off faster, or even buy a house with no money down, SaveWithConrad.com is your hookup. Holler if you hear me. That's SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. And oh, by the way, you don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. What are you waiting for? Find out how much money you can save for free at savewithconrad.com.
I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right next to Shep Moss sitting on a cooler.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left.
And we're back. So guess who we got here?
Who we got?
Let's have this second podcast. This is podcast versus podcast. Guys,
I am Billy with the Appalachian Podcast, and I'm not joined today by my lovable, goofy, tall co-host because he's back home dealing with his Tesla. And I'm joined here today by Scott, who has never done anything like this in his entire life, and he's been thrust right
I remember
into
the
middle of
Tesla
it.
guy now from Motor Mile last year. Yeah. Old Tesla guy.
Scott looks petrified.
he'll loosen
I don't
up.
talk much. So.
Scott
That
has
big
been
black thing, it won't bite you. Go ahead. You'll be all right.
Scott has been on a couple of our shows before, and he kind of sits in the corner and will comment here and there if he gets excited. I don't have a lot of expectations of him today, but as long as he's here and he rode down the road with me, I appreciate that.
So he's stunt Bodean, basically.
basically.
So what we're trying to do today is we're trying to kind of join two podcasts together. As a matter of fact, when you think about it, we started our podcast after we appeared on our first podcast, which was the Appalachian Podcast,
Right.
with you and me at Motor Mile a year ago. It was inspirational. It was a lot of fun. We sat out there outside the track and interviewed Bobby Labonte and Chris Williams and Burt Myers, and we had a great time. And you and Bobby had a wonderful conversation, Hermie. And after that, some opportunities came along, and we started our podcast. But we always pay homage to the guys that had us on their podcast first. And now we're sitting across from them in Hermie.
I still got my Appalachian Podcast T-shirt that I wear regularly.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And I can only imagine after that podcast we did in Turn 3 of Motor Mile, the conversation was something along the lines of, hey, Hermie, that was a lot of fun right there. We should start our own podcast. If these mouth-breathing slack jaws can do it, of course we can do something like that. And when you call us, I sincerely appreciate you calling us an inspiration. It's very flattering. I must remind you, I'm not in your voting district, though, so you don't have to.
Take it all back.
But no, it's
cut the tape, Chad. We're done. No. Now, listen, we love what you do. I listen to you guys all the time. Everybody who's listening to our podcast should listen to you guys because it really captures the flavor and the culture of our area that we live in Southside and Southwest Virginia. And in the same way, we hope your listeners will listen to us because we talk about politics that matter to Southside and Southwest Virginia and racing, and that's our commonality. We talk about auto racing and how important it is to our rural areas, and that's where we got our start together in our relationship. And I think that's why we're coming together in this kind of unique way of having podcast v podcast.
What kind of propelled you guys to start a podcast in the beginning?
Well, during the whole COVID stuff, we of course, most of y'all will remember, and I don't want to get too political about this being next to a politician, but we had a lot of, the whole statue movements across the state, and people want to tear down statues and things like that. And I don't know, it seemed like they were bringing a lot of unneeded attention to that during a time period when I figured they could focus their attention on something more pressing, like being locked in your homes and being forced to wear masks to just associate in public and things like that. And the New York Times and the Washington Post came into Franklin County and wrote some awful,
horrible
hit pieces, essentially, to make us seem like we were just, a bunch of yokels who have been racist since 18, and that's completely untrue. And I said, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to fight these lunatics toe to toe because they're just, they don't fight the same way. So what I got to do is get out there and let people know that our culture, our Appalachian culture, whether it be racing or bootlegging or music or food, it's fun and it's exciting, and you got to win the culture war by changing the culture.
And quite frankly, we never look at each other in any different way. We're just who we are. We wave at each other when we pass each other on the street. If you're mowing your lawn and your John Deere tractor, we wave at you there. And if you don't, then you find them at the minute market and they go, hey, man, we got a problem. You didn't wave at me when you drove by my house while I was cutting my lawn. I mean, that's the life that they don't have. And they want the trees. They want the nature. They want everything we have. And now they want to take away our farms and put solar farms on them. And they, in the Virginia legislature, I'm going to tell you, and Hermie's heard this before, my dad was in the military. So I grew up in Northern Virginia, Virginia Beach. My family's from Southside Virginia. And let me tell you, those a-holes, more often than not, look at us, look down on us like we're backwards.
And they like to say, almost as my dad used to lovingly say, when I want your opinion, I will give it to you. They have no idea what this place is. We built Virginia. We've got some of the finest people, no matter what their ethnicity, color, creed, nationality, whatever. This is what they want. This is a utopia that they can't have, and they look down on us for it.
They hate us because they ain't us.
It's a good little thing there, Shep, isn't it?
Yeah. How close are you to Floyd County?
We border Floyd County.
So did you just go to Floyd Fest?
No, we didn't make it up there. I've got a 3-month-old at home, and my wife is literally holding my mail parts hostage. And the fact I was able to come back down here today after last night was nothing. I had to woo her with Senator Stanley's.
We know all about somebody holding the man's
Raise your hand.
mail parts. We'll talk about that on a future episode.
Floyd Fest is actually not in Floyd County. It's in Patrick County.
No, it's still in Floyd County. It's right along. It's by the winery up there. I'm pretty sure.
We say it's still Patrick County. This is disputed territory.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
So
understandable.
as we're taping this, we're at North Wilkesboro Speedway. We came back to the reopening of an historic racetrack, and so what brings you guys here?
Well, Chris Williams, honestly.
Jesus Lord.
Well,
Wow.
sorry, Chris.
Set the bar high.
When we started this podcast a year and a half ago, my whole initial thought was I'm going to have to beg just some local business owners and people here and there just to come on the show and tell their story, because it's not something that a lot of people are comfortable with. And a year and a half into it, I'm sitting here next to somebody who used to watch racing as a kid and, a state politician. I've got to sit down with Bobby Labonte and a handful of other folks. And I never imagined that it would get to this point as fast as it did. So we had Satchworley on last fall, and that episode just blew up. I've never expected it to do as well. And the very next week we had Chris, and ever since then, Chris gave us his time, so we try and support him and promote this tour as much as we can. And I found no reason not to continue doing so, because he's done nothing but put on show after show. And when I found out they were coming back here after all the hard work people have put into this, and a lot of the hard work you all have put into it, I know this isn't a Virginia historical track, but we're fighting the same battles here, and to have North Wilkesboro come back, that's a huge thing for other small venues. So we felt obligated to come down here and let everybody know just what they have been able to do with this.
We've got a racetrack in Virginia, many, but one of the ones that we're trying to shine a little bit of a light on is the legendary Southside Speedway, just outside of Richmond, up in Virginia. And the same template, the same things that, on a different scale perhaps, that have happened here, we need to happen up at Southside Speedway. So what did you think here this week when you saw a packed house roar with the approval as they dropped the green flag on a modified race here at North Wilkesboro?
My mind was absolutely blown. We did a podcast on Monday night with Steve Post, really hyping all this kind of stuff up. It was different. It's not
Steve
the Appalachian
Post of MRN radio fame.
Yeah, it's not the Appalachian Podcast.
Got some of the best hair in America.
Man, hippie hair.
Hey, come on now.
Yeah.
Come on, gentlemen.
You don't disrespect the senator.
You got a little perm going on, but
You mean Q-tip?
Yeah, but this Q-tip thing over here.
proof is in the poof. Right?
You know how you used to walk around with those combs in your back pocket that would stick up from the 80s? Oh, he's still got one. You're still using the original comb.
I might have one in my drawer, okay? But I'm never letting you find
Back
out.
pocket.
They're called a pick comb, right? I think that's what they're called.
Pick.
It's pick. Yes,
Pick.
a pick.
In the 80s, it was a pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I
Jules purple.
in the 70s when people's hair grew long like yours, mine grew out. So I just looked like, and that's how I earned the name Q-tip, because it looked like a damn.
Speaking of 70s hair, have you got any thoughts on our newest sponsor on our podcast, Manscaped?
I don't know what Manscaped is. I've heard them on quite a few other shows, but is that something that has to do with maybe scaping parts of your body you wouldn't
You're
normally
still
scape?
rocking the 70s up top and down below? Okay. Might be a reason why your wife is
The carpet matches a drape.
disenchanted with you right now.
Maybe that's a little personal for us.
Well,
to
it was just a me trying to get a sponsor plug in that you always tell me how important
It is, but then you won't read this.
If you decide to buy a Manscaped kit, use promo code Sadler.
Well, I was okay. Well, for one, my wife will be
off and free
listening to
shipping.
that, and she will. Number two, I was listening to you all.
I recommend the ball toner, by the way. Highly.
Speaking of sponsors, Hermie, you want to read your sponsor?
No, not this is inappropriate shit. And you're skating on thin ice. It is.
Well, I was hoping the the turning left segment still needed a sponsor for $10 a roll. I figure me and Scott could probably throw it 50 and get about 5 spots in that.
It goes very cheap on that side of the old deal.
Hey, that's fine by me. Hey, Hermie reading our name out there is.
So let me ask you something, Billy, because I'm fascinated by your history. I mean, your family's got deep ties into Franklin County, but you served all of us. You served our country. You protected us. You were over there. You mind talking about that, or is that?
No, I don't mind. Whatever you want to know.
I want to thank you for your service and keeping us free.
Oh, you can thank George Bush for that.
Well, but for what you did, what do you see differences? Not just where we live, but differences in the country that you fought for, like my dad fought for, into what it is actually right now.
My best assessment of what's going on is essentially the inmates have taken over the asylum, and we have gotten to a point in time where you're not allowed to fight through your problems. You're not allowed to fight that bully, learn how to deal with things on your own. And we have created a very soft society. And we've got people out there now that crave attention and dopamine rushes so much from just virtue and hate and vitriol that it's almost become second nature to them. They've turned it into a religion. So I think our darkest times end up leading to the brightest lights. You know what I mean? I think the last couple of years, as dark and bad as they've been, I think it's really woke a lot of people up. Yeah. And you're not just seeing that through voting, like through Youngkin. You're also seeing that through even the short track renaissance. People are getting back to these short tracks because they're tired of corporate America shoving nonsense down. I don't want to tune into a game and find out, who somebody sleeps with or who does this or who does that. That's not important. I want an escape. And that's why people, I think, are just fed up with it. And I'm right along there with them. I'm just tired of being told how I should live by people who don't know how I live, by people in cities, right, by people in areas of this country that don't affect me. And I don't want them to live the way, I decide. This is for me. So it's been disheartening, but I always think that the difficult times always create strong men. So the pendulum is starting to swing back in the right direction. So
where did you serve?
I was in Iraq in 2003 for the invasion. And
God bless you. Thank
I appreciate it. We went there with a very hardcore Appalachian unit out of Gate City, Virginia. We all kind of collided with them, us out of Rocky Mountain, them, and we should have never been over there. Nobody knew why we were there. We weren't attached to anybody. When we got there, they said, "The hell y'all doing here?" So we kind of actually almost did our own thing. We were kind of out by ourselves. We lived in Mortar Alley by ourselves, so we didn't have to deal with the brass on post, and we were outside the wire every single day, doing escort missions, getting shot at, and things of that nature, staying busy. I don't think there is nobody else on the planet, aside from the guys in my platoon, that have more combat man miles than we do. So we were outside the wire all the time, and it was something to behold. It really was. It was interesting, to say the least. I guess if there's a word you could use for war, I guess interesting would be the.
And by the way, as we're speaking, if you hear a little noise in the background, we are at North Wilkesboro Speedway, just outside of Turn 3, and the modifieds are on track practicing for tonight's race. So I think it's awesome.
I love that sound. Sounds like victory. Sounds like America.
And the senator had said something about what we thought about coming in here last night. And again, my mind was completely blown. I did not expect this place to be sold out and have the energy and the fire that it did. It kind of goes back to my first episode at a racetrack, which was Motor Mile last year. And this is kind of where a lot of the things for you all started. And I remember we started that show, Hermie saying, "My name is Hermie Sadler, and I have no idea why I'm sitting here." And here he is.
He still does it, by the way.
And that's my go-to line.
And I want to kind of talk to you all guys about that point in time, because that was almost a turning point. You all had the Pace-O-Matic guys there, showing them the race. Senator, you were sponsoring that race. Hermie, you were jumping back in the car. A lot of moving parts.
I wasn't jumping. It was a long process getting in of that car.
Half a gallon of Vaseline got in that thing.
They're actually talking about a new roof hatch for his next race.
Yeah, you know how they rescue horses in like California when there's a wildfire with the helicopter, kind of with the harness. That's why we're going to drop him in there.
That's how you'd have to get Bodean in.
And I got to say this, Shep wants to throw a funny in about me getting out of the car from the guy yesterday when Chad took a picture of us taping our podcast. Shep says, don't use that picture because I look fat.
But you make me look any fatter. Damn, Chad, shoulders up.
Good boy, Chad. You're getting a raise.
But you're right. We
And
from
knowledge.
from where we started back in October, to here, a lot has happened, and we quite frankly use our podcast as a platform. We've got an ongoing lawsuit going on against. We sued then Governor Ralph Northam, Democratic governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, in Mark Herring, to protect small businesses and their rights. And we decided to take this on, this fight, because really the people that really want to understand what we're doing, the issue is about skill games. But the problem, really, our lawsuit has nothing to do with skill games. It has to do with the government being able to, come in and say, Billy, you can't have something, but Chad can because we say so. And it really just circumvents the free market system and people's rights. And, so we've taken on that fight. And so far we've been winning. And, Bill has put his legal career and legal political clout, on the line for a cause that he believes in. But our podcast and our race team is really the platform that we continue to use to keep our message out front of people. And so far it's worked great.
Yeah, and I mean, you if we don't get our message out here, and that's why podcasts give you such an excellent platform that otherwise you don't have, then nobody hears you. And if nobody hears you, nobody listens. If nobody listens, nobody knows. If nobody knows, nobody learns. And what we have is a great opportunity. And that's why, it's inspirational to listen to you guys every week, whether it's bluegrass music, country, western music, racing, just anybody, an artist, our whole culture that you bring out there, I think is so very important. So I try to turn on all my Northern Virginia friends to something like this so that they understand us a little better, and maybe they can understand that we need to work together, because actually we got it better than Fairfax does. They just don't know it. They want to use our open fields to make solar farms so they can feel better when they go to bed, because the magic electric genie only pumped solar electricity into their Tesla Bodean and not the coal-fired stuff. But it's so important to get message out, but also educate people on how important this part of the state is. In politics we say there's Nova, Northern Virginia, and then there's Rova, the rest of Virginia. Now we exclude Hampton Roads and kind of the Richmond, they call it the Fertile Crescent there, because there is a distinct separation, but it is the differences that make us best. But they're so blinded. They've got blinders on in the way that they get in their car, they commute for an hour and a half, they drink their coffee, they get to their office, they work, they come back, get in their car, same blinders, hour and a half home, and then they pull it in the garage, and that's their life. They don't see that fresh air. They don't see the glisten of the Blue Ridge Mountains as the sun is setting. They don't see people that really matter and care about real life things. I mean, Janet Howell, Senator Janet Howell, which is your friend, Hermie, she came down here one time and did a tour. And we encouraged her. She came to New College Institute. And I saw her in the Senate chamber afterwards. And I said, "How was your tour?" And she said, "Oh my God, the people are so friendly." And, I was like, "Oh, great. That's a surprise. That's normal." I said, "What else?" She goes, "There's no traffic."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, what else?" That's about it. I mean, that's how they think. Everybody is cold to each other in Northern Virginia. You don't say hi to somebody walking in and out of a store. That's the problem. And if they don't see a different way, that's what they believe reality is. And you, an Appalachian Podcast, and us, hopefully give them that different perspective and show them that there's more to life than what they see in their little manquarium. And that's what I hope.
But Senator, exactly what you're talking about. That's why it's going to be so important. And that's why this 17th district election is going to just be crucial to the future of Virginia. It's so important that we have local representation up there. And hopefully we're going to be able to twist the arm and talk somebody in that's sitting relatively close to us into running for that seat.
Well, we've said it a number of times. We're outnumbered. I mean, because geographic areas determine your district based on population, my district is huge. But in Northern Virginia, there's 9 of them in a 42 square block area. They drive, the funny thing is to drive from the west end to the east end of their district takes longer just because of traffic. Mine is distance based on miles. They have no perspective. And so we need loud voices, whether it's in politics or whether it's on formats and platforms like this. We need those voices, and we need to be heard so that they don't assign us an opinion, they ask it.
I say this all the time. The people that I've encountered in Richmond, they're not all bad people, but they have a little bit of a disconnect between the policies they create and what goes into them and how those policies affect the normal, everyday working person. And does he realize if he doesn't speak, he doesn't get paid?
My name is Scott Minix, and I have no idea why I'm sitting here.
That's your check. No, he's back.
Yeah.
He's back.
He'll DD me home tonight if he doesn't start speaking up now.
Yeah. But, and that's really kind of what has encouraged me to actually consider running for a Senate seat in Virginia is simply because, do I like politics? No. Do I, but I care about the state I live in and the country we live in. I have kids. I hope to have grandkids, and I say all the time, I've never really got involved in politics in the past because we would slide a little bit one way, back the other, but the train is so far off the track now that somebody has to stand up and like Bill's talking about, and let people know what life is like outside of the cocoons that the people in power across the Commonwealth live in. So it's to me, in a lot of ways, it's now or never that somebody has to stand up and talk about it.
You're sounding the alarm.
You have to. Somebody has to.
Well, the Overton window has shifted so far that Obama from 15 years ago, if you just put his policies down a list right now and did not show a picture of him, the same people who vote on the left right now will consider him a far-right extremist just based off of his. And that's how far, and that's what I really appreciate so much about y'all's podcast. And that's why I'm glad that you all decided to do it, to be able to get different ideas out there. If you were to look at the senator right here from a distance, like, well, he's just a politician.
With great hair.
Yeah, with fantastic hair.
Yeah.
And he owns a race team, so he's got to be super cool when he hangs out with Hermie.
Yeah.
But
which is
probably
I take that out on my taxes as a charity. All right.
Makes him much more electable,
Yeah.
But, if you see him from a distance, you just think, okay, another normal politician. But I've had the chance to see him at a handful of races here and got to know him a little bit over the past year. And number one, between you all two, y'all are very liberty-minded. You're not forcing your views down anybody else. You're saying, hey, what's fair for the voters? What's fair for the common person? You all are not extremely right-wing. If anything, you're about as moderate and middle as you could possibly be on most of these issues. And secondly, when you look at Senator Stanley, when you come to these racetracks, there is nobody that is more hospitable, and I've never met anybody that is more in tune with his guests and hoping and expecting them to have a really good time. And that's something very admirable that I'm glad you all do this show, and I want people to listen to understand that he's not just a suit and a face. He's somebody that when you come to the track and you're hanging out and you're having a good time with him, he genuinely wants everybody around to have a good time. He should have threw my crew out last night from eating all his barbecue 5 minutes in.
Because he thinks you live in his district. Is why. Should not be confused.
But you know what? That's why I love you, Billy, because you came back with a replacement beer.
Exactly.
That was good.
Well, they all drank his beer last night.
Look, we're all from the same place, and that's what's great about it. I mean, that really did matter to us. It matters to my wife, Laura, and myself and my family. I mean, we're at home. We're in another state, but we're in something that we all love and enjoy. And in a moment in history, I mean, Hermie said this to me last night. He looked at me, and he said, there'll never be another moment like this, that our team won the first race back in North Wilkesboro. And the building block from that is not just important for all the short tracks in Virginia and North Carolina, South Carolina, as you said, that renaissance, but also the people that we spent it with, you guys, Randy Wilson, who I met through Jonathan Brown, the Tomlinsons, everybody just,
And look, we had Jeff Hammond on.
Yeah, and Jeff Hammond.
Yeah, I saw Jeff come in here. He come through here last night.
Yeah,
And he gave such a great talk. I mean, just amazing, an amazing moment that can never be recreated, but we can make more amazing moments like that at short tracks all over Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, everywhere else.
And you touched on something Hermie always talks about, that if he decides to run, he always talks about it's not what Hermie wants, it's what the people want. It's what his voters want to see happen. And, if he decides to run, I think he'll have a very open mind, very liberty-minded, as you mentioned. But I think he really has drilled down on something once again to realize that it's not about Hermie, it's about his constituents.
One of the things, I joke about this with Senator Stanley, one of the reasons why I may not ever make it to a Senate seat is because I really don't care, no other than Bill, I don't really care what people in the General Assembly think about what I think.
What, you care about what he thinks you think too?
Right. But
He's faking it.
And so there's this big thing when you start talking about running for office, the people within the party, within the system start talking to you about endorsements. You need to call so-and-so to endorse you. You need to call this person to endorse you. You need to call that person to endorse you. And I told the members of the caucus, Republican caucus, when I met with them, I said, I will never, ever ask or call anybody, politician, big business leader or not, and ask them to endorse me. I will not do that. If the right person comes along and on their accord wants to endorse me or throw their support behind what I believe in my cause and my mission, that's fine. But why am I going to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, so-and-so, Mr. Important Politician so-and-so, would you endorse my campaign? No, I will not do that, because as I told Shep, to me what matters is, what do the people that are going to be voting in the district that I may be trying to represent, what do they think? What are the issues they want me to focus on? Not what some politician from another part of the state or somebody in Washington or somebody like that having their name behind mine, and maybe it'll hurt me. But I don't understand. I shouldn't have to. A person that's doing it right shouldn't have to ever call or ask or beg somebody to endorse them. And I feel that way strongly.
I'm endorsing you.
Way too honest for politics.
I'll have to decide whether or not. I'll have to decide whether or not I'm going to accept.
Actually, believe it or not,
We're reviewing that endorsement.
Well, actually, believe it or not, and this is the truth, and Brad Tuesday, Chad Monday knows this. So, you get politicians that call, we'd really like your endorsement. And I always tell them, my endorsement is the kiss of death. Because if I endorse you, I have a losing record. And I don't think any voter is actually going, oh, Bill Stanley. I'm not. But it's just like one of those things. So I'd rather not. But I'll come out to your events. I'll support you, man. And if you get elected, especially General Assembly or even at local levels, man, I'm going to support you. Whatever I can do for you, you got it. But I find them to be meaningless a lot of times. And quite frankly, I don't think Billy Riddle, you're going to look and say, oh, I got this candidate, I got this candidate. His endorsement list sucks. He's going to look at it and go, no, that's good. It's their own positions that matter. I always learned in politics, somebody taught me this a long time ago, when you have like 2 minutes to speak to somebody, you basically let them know who you are, what you stand for, and what you're going to do if you're elected for them and for the people like them. And that's where people are going to be convinced, not some endorsement.
Well, we're so polarized here lately that nobody even wants to pay attention to the candidate for their views anymore. The only thing they want to look at is whether there's an R or a D beside their name. And they will vote for some of the most asinine things just to try and make some point to somebody that doesn't even care.
And that's where actually we had Jeff Ryer on. He's our comms director for caucus. He said it is more polarized than ever. So it's straight line ticketing. You used to vote for a guy. You could vote for Mark Warner and then the Republican. Now they're finding it's all straight line party votes. And we've just divided ourselves. And we've divided ourselves based on party, rural versus urban. We're creating holes instead of filling gaps and creating bonds. We're separating ourselves. And we see it even now with the abortion issue. Every liberal's hair is on fire right now because they said abortion's now been made illegal by the Supreme Court. That's an absolute lie. It's now up to the states as the founding fathers intended, which is a state's right. Never put in the Constitution, it needs to be a state issue. Well, there are going to be states that are going to limit. There are going to be states that outlaw. And there are going to be states that say right up to birth and after birth. If you got a problem, then those are the places you're going to live. But ultimately, that will create separation, maybe, and not division, but only creating more that was already there. and I hope I live in a state that is recognizes the sanctity of life and is pro-life. But we'll see.
I'm 100% on board with that. And most of these people, as you say, they don't really know the Constitution at all. They don't really understand how laws and things work. You know, people griping about the Supreme Court decision also want to gripe that there's too much power on the federal level, not understanding that the Supreme Court just relinquished that power. So they just want to be mad, and they want to use it as a voting tool. Most of the congressional members that are making the biggest fuss about
want to
this
divide people.
are in states that
They just want to divide people.
that abortion's not even going to change, like New York and California. Why do you care? No, exactly. So, you know, I'm all pro-life. You do have a choice. You have a choice whether you decide to engage in a sexual act or not. And beyond that, like everything else, I don't want to say getting pregnant is a consequence, but ultimately it is in the traditional sense. Hey, you don't need it, and that's my opinion. And you know, I'll stand by that. I think life is a beautiful thing, and accountability and responsibility is what should be taught, not, you know, contraception through abortion. So.
Those are human beings, but we could get into that, and we don't want to get too deep.
Yeah, that's a whole.
But again, the United States Supreme Court is recognizing that states have rights because we are closest to the state in terms of the voter. The voter reflects its own opinions through the people it elects in the state Senate and in the House of Delegates and in the governor's mansion, and that those are decisions best left to the people rather than a federal overarching government. And it gets us right back to the same thing we were talking about earlier. Do you want the government to have more power to dictate your life, or do you want to be at a local level, the ability to control that, regulate when it needs regulation, don't regulate when it doesn't, and ultimately let freedom ring, let liberty prevail? And that's the question.
Well, I hope it looks like people are finally starting to pay a little bit more attention as to what's going on, and we need to continue that momentum into this November's elections, and hopefully people will continue to understand and realize that if you take a step back and not allow yourself to be brainwashed or have a divisive view or to be closed-minded about somebody else's view, if you sit there and just look at everything objectively, then we need to really take a good hard look about where we are in the Commonwealth of Virginia as a whole. And as we sit here talking about it, if we open one person's eyes, just to be open-minded and listen to really exactly what's going on and not feel like they have to take a specific side or the other, then if we do that, if we get that message to one person, then it's been worth our time to sit here and talk about it.
Well, I think that's why you all are good vessels for it. You know, you both bring different perspectives when you're on your show. And, you know, Hermie, you come from a racing background, but you also facilitate the people in this country that move this country, and that's truck drivers. You have a handful of truck stops. I've stopped at them before as a truck driver myself. Best peanuts you can get in Virginia at some of them places. Oh my goodness, I'm a peanut fanatic. So
hey,
you
don't go to
really,
the bathroom because their sinks will attack you.
Yeah. But so you really have an understanding of what really moves America. You get around and you get to see these racetracks and speak with people in different parts of the country, and you know what it takes to keep the country moving for these truck drivers. And that's why I think you're an integral part.
Well, the truck drivers moving products and produce, farmers that I personally sell fuel to that are being crushed by this inflation and other costs. And it's like, you talk to certain people, they have no understanding of how much trouble we'll be in if trucks stop moving and farmers cannot afford the fertilizers and the things they need to produce a crop. You know, we say it jokingly, but it really isn't funny. It's like people in Northern Virginia and southern other areas of the state truly believe they grow produce at Food Lion in the back.
Hermie, they'll tell you they just got to find another way to make money.
Yeah,
that's their solution. Well,
It's
the
just
farmers are
unbelievable.
getting hit. Oh, they
It's
just got to
unbelievable.
find another way to make a living. Well, it doesn't work like that.
Now, what do they say
You've
there?
actually been told that, I believe.
Yeah.
They're 9 miles away from complete and total chaos in New York City and things like that. It's not very far-fetched, especially given the conditions we've seen in the past couple of years. So, you know, I think, like I said, between y'all two and the different angles and perspectives you all bring, I think it's a phenomenal combination. I think both of you all doing a phenomenal job in the state on a bunch of different angles, which kind of leads me into the next few things we'll talk about before we get off of here. I want y'all to talk about just being owners and fans. Hermie, you've won a lot of races in your time, a lot of big races. So compare that to how does last night level up to some of your biggest as an owner, as a huge win at the reemergence of North Wilkesboro? I mean, this is historic.
Right at the top of the list, because this is, as we said earlier, that race last night that Ryan Newman won driving for Senator Stanley and I with Pace-O-Matic on the car, everything that was hatched with a dream we had and a conversation we had leading up to and through Motor Mile Speedway last year, we won a race that nobody else could ever win again. And a lot of things had to go right for that to happen. I mean, the team we put together and the crew that we have with Phil Stefanelli and the guys. But, and I've told this to Bill several times, and you know, if anybody's lived the American dream, it's me. I got to, for 25 plus years, travel all over this country, either driving a race car or talking about it on national television. I mean, how lucky have I been? And I decided in 2019 that I didn't want to travel that much anymore. I wanted to devote more time to my family and my kids and all that. So this really gave me a pipeline to do both, to be back at home and look after my business, look after my family, do all these things, but to still scratch that itch a little bit every once in a while. But I say all that to say that after my 25 years, the biggest asset that I have from my life on the road for 25 years is my friendships and the relationships that I formed racing and doing TV, following the NASCAR circus for 25 years. How is that important in this conversation? That I could pick up the phone and call Ryan Newman and say, do you want to drive a modified, for a couple races, and, it's just been, not everybody could have done that. And Ryan, let's be honest, he has to have a lot of faith in Senator Stanley and I, that when a guy like him, a legend, with all the races he's won and what he's accomplished, he has to have a lot of trust in us that we're going to put him in a car, a safe car that can be competitive and give him a chance to win. And he showed right up at Richmond earlier this year. We didn't get the finish we wanted, but we were fast enough to win. We had some bad luck. We come here and, and just like yesterday, Shep and I walked inside the racetrack. And as soon as I walked across the track with my little handheld recorder, first person that hollers at me is Dale Earnhardt Jr. So we walk over there and we start talking, and we talk for 15, 20 minutes on a piece that, aired on our podcast. And it's like those relationships and friendships, and I've built trust with these people over the years. So to get back to your question, to see all that come together, I felt as satisfied or as rewarded last night as much as any race I ever personally won myself, because I saw smiles on lots of people's faces, like Senator Stanley, his wife, kids, everybody, because we created an opportunity that we capitalized on it. But the lesson behind all that is it didn't happen by accident. Every decision that goes into building those cars, the engines, the people, the driver, the decisions we made during practice yesterday, the decision we made during qualifying, for instance, for Ryan to only run one lap and to do all these other kind of things, everything we had a plan. And, you don't win a race like we won here with Ryan Newman by accident. Everything, you have to have a plan and you have to execute it. But my relationship with Senator Stanley brought on Pace-O-Matic. The relationship with Pace-O-Matic nurtured our relationship with Phil Stefanelli, then Jonathan Brown, then my long-term relationship with somebody like Ryan Newman allowed us to put the whole
Yates
thing
Motors
together. Robert Yates built the engine, Doug Yates. So there's a lot of things, but my most prized asset in my life these days, outside of Bill Stanley, really and truly are the relationships I have with the friendships I built over 25 years of being on the road.
And I'll tell you, I was fortunate enough to be down there with Hermie last night. I was on the wall, and I videotaped the coming around turn 4, taking the checkered flag, and to see, I've known Hermie a lot of years, and to see the genuine excitement on his face. I mean, Hermie actually jumped up about 3.5 inches off the pavement last night in elation.
That's a hell of a vertical right there.
But, you know, I mean, Hermie he was high-fiving, he was hugging, he was smiling. It was a real emotional reaction to, like you said, a plan coming full circle. And it was something, just as a friend, I was honored to be there to watch him come full circle with this. It was awesome.
Hugely rewarding. I think, you know, the funny thing, ironically, for me is, so when we got together, of course, friends a long time, we got pissed off the way that General Assembly handled skill games. He brought that to my attention. We fought it. I just thought it was so unfair. We get together. He comes up with the idea of doing a podcast when we're doing the lawsuit. I was the one that wanted the race team. He's the one that wanted the podcast. And yet his direction, his leadership, especially in the relationships that he was just talking about, and the respect that he gets on the track. And not only that, but also he looked at me and said, we're not going to buy a car. We're going to build a car. We're not going to buy a team. We're going to build a team. We're not going to put some, jackleg in the car. We're going to find the young driver to take us to the next level. And that deliberation, that love of the sport, that you build it from the ground up. I mean, that's a testament to so many different things when you talk about small business or politics or grassroots. And we're going to make this something where we're going to educate people. We're going to advocate our positions, and we're going to give opportunities. And we're going to really, as he and I both had the passion for, that revival of the short track. He put that all together, and he has leveraged that to where we've had great success. And in doing so very humbly. I hate to say that, but he's a humble guy. But again, for me, when I caught up to him inside the track right before we went onto the elevator, I never had a bigger hug, never felt more proud, and just everything coming to fruition from one talk with a calendar and a pot and a mouse, and here we are.
Racing is the race team that we have. I run it just like I run every other aspect of every other business that I'm involved in. You find the best combination of talented people, put them in the right places, give them the resources, and manage, but not micromanage. And, look, we had the biggest turnaround a month ago. Our car got demolished at Caraway. I mean, absolutely demolished. And our team was down. Our guys were questioning themselves. What are we doing? Are we doing things the right way?
And the race before we won in Franklin.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
But the roller coaster that we're on. But and I went to the race shop several times and tried to hit the reset button and get everybody back on the same page and kind of refocus everybody on the goal for coming here and the things we were going to try to do to the cars and, improve our engines and do all the, and more importantly, we put together a plan, just like Bill does when we've been going to court to fight against the Commonwealth of Virginia. Bill comes in with a plan, and we've been executing that plan. Same way with me. We started, Phil Stefanelli and I started a month ago. Once we kind of came up with a plan of coming to this racetrack, what we were going to need, because what you need to win at North Wilkesboro is different than what you need at just about any other track we go to. It's bigger. The surface is good, but it's old, and the things you need shock wise and grip wise and tire wise and all that, I mean, it's a different thing. We started putting together a plan of what to do at the shop to get here. But more importantly, it's hard when you come to the racetrack with a plan. It's hard to stick to the plan because
always is, yeah.
You say, well, we're only going to run 5 laps of practice. And, you get here and you run 5 laps of practice and somebody else is a little bit faster than you are. And you say, well, let's make one more change and try it. But we stuck to the things that we wanted to try in practice and keeping the minimum amount of time on the car and the tires. And our guys just executed. And as you saw, I don't know if you guys saw that pass Ryan Newman made in lap traffic.
Man.
Oh,
He saw an opportunity and he pounced on it, but then got back out front and went right back to the plan, and made them chase him, come after him. And it was just a masterful driving job, which is not surprising. But you could just tell by Ryan, Ryan's not the most outspoken guy, but once people started interviewing him about the meaning of winning at this racetrack with all the history and all the things, he started to, to really start just letting it flow. And it was really cool to see. This is a big time win for everybody involved.
He knew what had happened.
Well, not only that, though. I mean, Harmy, you've noticed a real difference in him.
Yeah.
And an appreciative difference. And that's and to see it then last night. And there's a clip that we've played of him talking live, the Fox channel down here in Wilkesboro. And you could just see, I mean, he was talking about his kids. He was talking about the Parsons family that he dedicated the win to. Very appreciative of us. Mm-hmm. But you could see that joy, that love of racing in the same way we see with Bobby Labonte. He's out here because he loves it. And that really is, you're not coming out here. A lot of these guys are putting up their own money, missing, days of work. They're doing it because they love the sport. And that's what we love, being a part of it. And that's the best part really there. So we're very excited.
Well, I know when you were talking about, filming Hermie last night, I did the same thing for Senator Stanley, and I was watching him, and I just wanted to be able to capture that moment of elation for somebody who's worked very, very hard. And same deal, hugging, jumping up and down, just enjoying life. And I also got to thinking that was the second race that I had hung out with Senator Stanley at, and the second time that they had won. So I'm thinking, maybe there's some, I don't know, maybe something that can go through the House or the Senate or something. Maybe I could get a grant for being a lucky charm to where.
Yeah, you and Casey Tomlinson, you guys are our good luck charms. We're going to need that combination going forward so we can run for a championship in Spark.
The thing, too, that we all forget in our daily lives sometimes, when you have success, you need to take a few moments along the way and enjoy them. Because life in general, but also racing, brings you more challenges. You lose more than you win.
Yeah.
And so if you let the lows get you too low and not really take in and appreciate the moments you have success, then you're doing it wrong. So I'm glad we were able to, now we re-rack them and go again tonight, to try again. But last night was just really special. And I'm glad our whole team, Phil Stefanelli and Ryan Newman have been texting me pretty much all day, about it, reminiscing about it, and talking about it. So,
well, and having you guys here was really important to us as well. And as we close here, I just want to touch on you guys are not only growing your podcast, but you're branching out into new podcast territory. Why don't we talk about that just for a little bit?
Yeah. Well, after we got the Appalachian Podcast started, we trying to get our foot, and we finally realized that a lot of people just like talking racing. They like hearing the stories, and our racing doesn't focus so much on maybe the modern kind of stuff. A lot of our guests have been guys who blaze trails. Jimmy Hensley, Satch Worley, Gerald Compton, and we got Paul Rafford coming on Monday with Chris Williams. That's going to be a phenomenal show. Guys like that. And we started realizing that racing really moved the needle. So for a couple other guys that I know that really enjoy the racing, we started a second podcast called D's Lug Nuts, something just a little bit different.
What?
D's Nuts? Got him!
It's all right. That's a drop we do. So say it again. What is it?
It's D's Lug Nuts. You want to say the lug really fast, so it kind of sounds like you're saying D's Nuts. But yeah, D's Lug Nuts.
I still laugh at that crap years later.
We wanted... Well, for one, we wanted to figure out how to get pit passes in the races, and that's a good way to start on top of the Appalachian Podcast. But, based off of you guys kind of in the short track renaissance, we've watched South Boston fill up a couple times this year. We got to listen to Hermie call the Hampton Heat a couple weeks ago. Some of the modified races. Short track racing is huge now. So we wanted to kind of find a way to get some of our audience that just like listening to the racing shows to come on over and just maybe do a weekly thing where we talk a little bit about what happened in the NASCAR world to kind of tie it into the local area, and then talk about some of the local tracks just because they need the exposure. Talk a little Bowman Gray, Franklin County, and whatever big is going on in Virginia. Just gives a little bit extra exposure, and it's fun and it's something different, and gives Dean and Julian and Bodean a little chance to really open up their lungs and talk about racing, because I'm more of the other things show. I like racing and all of it. Then they're really focused on racing.
Everybody who's listening to this, make sure you're tuning into that podcast as well. Hermie, what a great podcast, the Appalachian Podcast.
Yeah, they were
our start. Our
appreciate y'all always being here, supporting, representing. You guys believe a lot of the same things we do, and together we're reaching a lot of people. I think we're making a difference, and hopefully people are paying attention. So but every 6 months we need to reconnect and get on together and update each other on what's going on, and trying to continue to drive the message home.
Yeah, we're a band of brothers, and also tell everybody where they can listen to your great podcast, the Appalachian Podcast.
Yeah, we're at appalachianpodcast.org, and that'll link you to pretty much all the apps that are associated with us, Spotify, Apple. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all of those places. And also the same with Deez Lug Nuts. It's DEEZ. Lug.
Is that Brian?
NUTZ.
Yeah, Brian Deez, right?
Yeah. So you can find all those on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, things of that nature. And I do once again appreciate you all. I'm down here today because of the Senator. We showed up yesterday just hoping, we're going to come down for one day, experience it, and then go back home. And he looked at me and said, why don't you come back tomorrow?
Yeah.
Why don't you do this? And I thought to myself, I sent my wife a message. I said, I drive an 18-wheeler for a living. I said, I can go to work tomorrow and deliver, and I'm going to have the same result. Or I can come down here and try and just add on a little bit more to a legacy that I'm trying to build with some fantastic people and learn from people who really are successful and have a path of success. So the more time I can hang out with you guys, the more I can pick your brain and the more I can apply it to what we do on a daily basis. So I certainly appreciate y'all's time and effort, and getting to sit down and talk with y'all has been a phenomenal way to start
Anything you
the
want to
day.
add before you get off the air?
Yeah, I mean, you've been
Billy
great.
Billy covered it. Thank you guys for having us.
But you still have no idea why you're here?
He was
I'm here
supposed
to watch you race.
he was supposed to miss work yesterday just to come down and ride with me, and then we got back so late last night, and I had to tell my wife we're turning back around, that he ended up calling in work and skipping out again. He said, well, I'll ride back down with you if you want to. Absolutely.
And see how many of them damn supply chain issues. See that?
We're creating them.
Hey, I tell you what, I think we have survived our first pod swap.
And quite frankly, let's do it again. Just like Hermie said, a great podcast, the Appalachian Podcast. You can find it on most major platforms and carriers. Listen to them, man. You'll learn so much about where we live and so much about what makes this area great. And listen to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. Together
Powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Together we come for a purpose. Now we're going to shut this thing down, and we're going to watch some great racing here at North Wilkesboro Speedway. Day 2, as the saga continues, the Wilkesboro tapes.
Appreciate you guys coming out. Good luck
Thank
to you.
y'all so much. Thanks for the hospitality. We'll see you next time.
God bless you guys.